Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The call that Chen Ming made was quickly connected. Bai Quan answered the call and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" As far as he knew, Chen Ming had been hanging around the Psychic Research Institute these 2 days. He didn't understand why he was needed in matters related to psychic energy. And what Chen Ming wanted to tell him was not about the Psychic Research Institute. There was an accident. My fleet was attacked by the mechanical race. They made a lot of preparations in advance, blocking the jump engine, blocking the hyperspace, and sacrificing a large number of mechanical race individuals to damage the hull of the spacecraft and steal a batch of my goods. Bai Quan was no longer confused after hearing this, but he was very surprised. The mechanical race can actually steal your things. If the gap in fleet strength is too large, I can't withstand it even if I have psychic energy. For example, a main battleship can directly destroy one of my cruisers with one shot. Even if I am good at repairing, I can't repair a hammer if the spacecraft is gone. This time it's also my problem. I didn't consider the place so far away from the Empire. There will be mechanical tribes everywhere. I thought that the support I could provide would arrive in 5 minutes at most, so I didn't arrange too many escort fleets. As a result, I was unable to take defensive measures when the mechanical tribe came to attack. Bai Quan asked, "It was outside the Empire, right?" "Yes." "That's not surprising. Outside the Empire, mechanical tribes may appear anywhere, but mechanical tribes like to form a star field in groups, which doesn't mean there are no scattered ones." "How much did you lose specifically?" "It's mainly a batch of energy crystal crabs." "Energy crystal crabs." Bai Quan spoke faster for a moment. He thought that Chen Ming was sending the goods he needed outside and was robbed by the mechanical tribe. It was just some basic supplies. It turned out that the energy crystal crabs that Chen Ming sent to the Empire were robbed by the mechanical tribe. This situation is not right. Why would the mechanical race rob this batch of stuff? It can't be that the information was leaked, right? "I don't know the specific reason either," Chen Ming said, "but I can be sure that the mechanical race came to attack my fleet with a purpose, and they acted very decisively, just to rob the goods, and they knew that this was my goods. Because the mechanical race obviously targeted some of my spiritual power weaknesses when they attacked, and they retreated directly after robbing the goods." Retreated? Bai Quan's doubt was also the point that Chen Ming was puzzled about before. Because it is normal for the mechanical race to rob the passing Imperial spaceships. But usually, after the rob, or before the rob, the mechanical race will choose to kill all the spaceships and the people on the spaceships. Why didn't they continue to track? Why didn't they destroy them? Why did they let the fleet go? Unless, the mechanical race thinks that doing so will fail. Bai Quan confirmed the specific situation with Chen Ming again. "I learned that the mechanical race even ran away when Chen Ming's spaceship was trapped in the hyperspace cloud, and ran away as soon as they got the goods, without any nostalgia. Obviously, they knew that Chen Ming's reinforcements were on the way, and any delay would leave them behind. Because of this, Chen Ming was sure that the mechanical race must know that this fleet was his. To be honest, Chen Ming had met the mechanical race several times before, although he never revealed his true identity. But he must have left a very strong trace in the mechanical race's database. It was normal to find that this was Chen Ming's spaceship. So Bai Quan had no further questions, but this matter itself was a problem. If the mechanical race also has the technology to cultivate energy crystal crabs, then the loss of energy crystal crabs may lead to the mechanical race also having energy crystal technology. The key is the number of energy crystal crabs seized by the mechanical race and their technology. It is difficult to determine how good the mechanical race's technology is, but it can be seen from those mechanized psychic creatures that it is definitely not low. So once the number of lost energy crystal crabs exceeds a certain number, the mechanical race may really be able to cultivate a new population. "How many energy crystal crabs did you lose?" "A few thousand." "A few thousand." The number of a few thousand is very ambiguous, just stuck at the intersection of successful breeding and unsuccessful breeding. After all, a population needs to have a base number guarantee, and it is absolutely impossible to breed a new population if the number is too small. Even if cloning technology is used, it will not work. If a population has too few genetic samples, it will sooner or later become a lifeless group. But a few thousand, this number gave Baikwan a headache for a while. In fact, the situation is not completely irreversible. Because as long as the intelligence within the empire is not leaked, the mechanical race should not know what specific goods I am transporting, at least not for the time being. They will need time to investigate the purpose of this batch of goods, and I still have a chance to snatch the things back. And I have also confirmed that the mechanical race must have a temporary base nearby, and they will definitely send the stolen energy crystal crabs there. My idea is to destroy the mechanical race's base and snatch the things back. But I have to ask for your opinion first, lest my actions lead to an early war between the Empire and the mechanical race. After explaining the situation clearly, Baikwan also realized that this was a decision that needed to be made in a short time. It must have been not long since Chen Ming's goods were stolen. If the speed of action is fast enough, the mechanical race may not even have time to investigate the actual function of the energy crystal crab. But as long as the action is slow, the mechanical race will have a greater chance of understanding the technology of energy crystallization. Chen Ming's current level is similar to that of a sophomore. Of course, he can't make such a purely overall consideration, so he came to ask him. There is no time to think more or ask other people's opinions. Baikwan must respond now. But he thought about it and said, I feel that even if I give objections, there is a high probability that you will take action directly, at most in a more concealed way. Really? Chen Ming responded in his heart. He has sent the support fleet that just rushed over to find the temporary base of the mechanical race. After all, he didn't know what the situation of the mechanical race base was, so he must be prepared to pursue it as soon as possible, and then decide whether to take action based on the final investigation results. Of course, his fleet did not rely on the traces of the mechanical race fleet's jump to track it. After all, how could the mechanical tribe not know about the tracking method that he knew? If you follow the jump trace, you will definitely be ambushed by the mechanical tribe. Therefore, the specific location of the mechanical tribe's base still depends on Chen Ming's perception of the same hive mind network through his psychic power. As long as you follow the feeling in your heart, you can find the mechanical tribe's hometown. Baikwan also knows Chen Ming's thoughts very well. He will usually make up for the losses he suffered. Chen Ming knows too well that as long as it is not a real deep hatred, as long as the people who have had conflicts give compensation and sincerely apologize, many things will be directly passed. But the mechanical tribe cannot give compensation, and Chen Ming must think about giving the mechanical tribe a hard time. Baikwan had no objection to this, so if you ask me, you can go. After entering the second phase of reconnaissance, the Empire has already started preliminary friction with the mechanical clan. The mechanical clan is not blind to so many reconnaissance operations. It's okay to have conflicts with the mechanical clan, as long as it's not a large-scale war between the Empire and the mechanical clan Starfield. You can fight in that place at will. With Baikwan's words, everything Chen Ming did next was endorsed by Baikwan, and of course all the responsibilities were borne by him. While taking responsibility, he can of course enjoy the rights and benefits that come from responsibility. The worst-case scenario of handling this matter is that Chen Ming leaked the technology of energy crystals to the mechanical clan and triggered the war between the Empire and the mechanical clan in advance. This kind of thing is impossible. War never starts because of someone. If it seems like this, it's just because that person is at the forefront of the times. And if this matter is handled well, the final outcome may be to thwart the mechanical clan's plan to continue to open up and leave a way out for themselves in advance. But can you fight? Chen Ming thought about the last time he attacked the colony of the mechanical race. At that time, his mastery of cruiser technology was not high, and he was far from being able to build a cruiser by hand. He could only rely on the few afterglow cores in his hand, and the cruisers he got by various means to fight the mechanical race. At that time, he dared to fight and could fight, and he can do it now. Speaking of it, Chen Ming remembered that at the end of his last attack on the colony of the mechanical race wanted to come and surround his spacecraft, and a fleet came. As a result, this fleet was directly killed by a phase behemoth that suddenly appeared. It has been a long time since the last time, And I don't know if the phase behemoth was killed by the mechanical race. Will he encounter it again this time? It's too far away. It should be impossible. Chen Ming threw the strange idea out of his mind and responded to Bai Quan with a slightly more restrained tone. We can only attack the fleet that comes to attack them, but we have to wait until I determine the location of their base. Okay. Then can you send back the real-time video later? If there is a video, we can also help you analyze some situations here. Chen Ming thought about it and said, okay. The Queen of Worms will not appear in this operation because it is still evolving. Even if it is not evolving, it is not easy to appear. After all, this raid on the base of the mechanical tribe is an urgent task. In pursuit of efficiency, it is necessary to capture the base of the mechanical tribe in a short time. The Queen of Worms needs time to develop before it can attack. When the Queen of Worms develops, the matter will be over. Since the Queen of Worms is not here, it is not difficult to share some information about the mechanical tribe. After receiving Chen Ming's reply, Bai Quan also knew that he should be busy next. Then I will notify a few people here and discuss the follow-up. We will help you and try to get the energy crystal crab back. The communication ended. Bai Quan went to contact people. Chen Ming also shifted his attention to the fleet that was looking for the mechanical tribe's base. When Chen Ming was preparing to reinforce the fleet, he directly filled the team with the largest scale he could control now. Except for HR, who was responsible for guarding the home. Brilliant, Glory, Flashing, and Superb were all driving warships. In addition to the 9 cruisers that Chen Ming could control, a total of 13 cruisers were in the fleet. As for the types of these cruisers, Chen Ming did not bring the defenders or standard cruisers of the mechanical race that he had captured before. In addition to letting Hui Huang drive the Hui Huang class, Hui Yao drive the Hui Yao class, Shangguang drive the Shangguang class, and Xiaofan drive the Zhigao class. All the cruisers prepared were made by Chen Ming directly with psychic energy, all of which were Stardust class. A total of 9 ships. One Stardust class can release 1,600 meteor fighters for self-destruction in one round. If there are 9 Stardusts, that is 14,400 meteor fighters, a total of tens of thousands. This is just one round. Chen Ming's psychic energy can replenish war supplies for all ships in real time. Meteor fighters are of course within the scope of supply. Just release a few more rounds of fighters. That scene should be quite magnificent. Chen Ming's heart is already looking forward to it. Although the loss of supplies may be a little bit, the effect will not be bad, and aren't supplies used for use? Accumulating supplies that cannot be used is just garbage. And this time he made a new attempt. In addition to the 13 cruisers in the fleet, he also matched 260 destroyers in a ratio of 1 to 10. There are only 2 types of these 260 destroyers, 60 of the 14th Legion Law Enforcer class used to defend the line. And the remaining 200 ships are equipped with tachyon spears, energy crystal storage devices that can keep up with the terrifying energy consumption of tachyon spears, and antimatter reactors and antimatter engines. Tens of thousands of self-destructing small planes and 200 tachyon spears will definitely bring endless surprises to the mechanical race. Chen Ming did not bring smaller guards. After all, even the smallest boats are just cannon fodder and have no meaning. As long as he can raid first in the subsequent battles, he will have a great chance of winning. While Chen Ming's fleet was searching for the mechanical race base, Chen Ming's prosthesis at the headquarters was also taken away. The people at the headquarters took Chen Ming to a military base near the city and sent Chen Ming all the way to the door of a conference room. When standing at the door, Chen Ming heard people talking about him, which was what he had just said to Bai Quan. Just when Chen Ming was about to push the door in, he suddenly heard someone say, Chen Ming made a mistake in military purposes and should be punished. This sentence made Chen Ming stand still at the door, and he did not push the door in. He also stopped the person who brought him here and asked him not to make a sound. The man in the meeting room continued. If the mechanical race also obtains this technology, the consequences will be disastrous. There is no way to make sure that the mechanical race did not take the opportunity to seize the sample to obtain the technology after remediation. This situation is quite serious. Chen Ming felt that these 2 sentences would be the consensus of many people who disliked him. After all, he had already beaten back the direct harm, and the Legion commander came out to guarantee it, so no one dared to touch this bad luck directly. But as long as he caught a hole in his mistake to attack, no one could say anything. Even the Legion commander could not protect Chen Ming when Chen Ming made a mistake. However, Chen Ming immediately heard a familiar voice speaking again. The premise of questioning is that there is a real mistake. As long as this matter can be handled well, it is not a mistake, but the right thing to do. Besides, Chen Ming has been a civilian from the beginning. It is the job of others to ensure the transportation of military supplies. We cannot just blame him. If Chen Ming remembered correctly, the voice that refuted later was Qiu Bowen, the general who had previously targeted him. Although it is possible that Qiu Bowen found him at the door and said this, at least he gave Chen Ming face in front of others. Chen Ming pushed open the door. The layout of the conference room appeared in front of him. It can only be said that it is very familiar. It was the same as the conference room whereby Quan invited him to attend the military meeting for the first time. But at that time, Chen Ming had just started to learn military command and basically did not understand anything. And now, at least Chen Ming can understand, and he is also qualified to speak here. Qiu Bowen, Bai Quan, and 3 other lieutenant generals that Chen Ming had never seen were standing at the front of the conference room at this time, chatting with each other. He's here. Bai Quan's words attracted the attention of several people present to Chen Ming. The 3 lieutenant generals didn't know who had just said bad things about Chen Ming, and they all chose to keep silent tacitly. Chen Ming didn't bother to care about them. And Qiu Bowen didn't seem to have any changes in his mentality, as if it wasn't him who was embarrassed by Chen Ming some time ago. After shaking hands with Chen Ming as usual, he made a gesture of invitation to Chen Ming and asked Chen Ming to sit directly in the main seat. After all, the key to this emergency operation lies in Chen Ming. Chen Ming was not polite and reached out to control the computer next to him. A picture was projected on the conference table. A fleet was sailing in the channel and was about to cross the channel and arrive in the hyperspace of a galaxy. In addition to the surrounding environment, the picture also showed part of the fleet. For a while, the generals sitting in the conference room, except Bai Quan, were a little hesitant to speak. Because usually, when a fleet of more than 100 ships is carrying out operations against uncertain enemy configurations, it must be equipped with at least 5 different types of ships to help commanders cope with complex and changeable combat environments. And Chen Ming only equipped 2 types. But Chen Ming equipped the law enforcers modified by the 14th Legion, which ranked first in defense among all destroyers, and the armor-piercing class designed by Shinda Company, which has now begun to be put into military production. And the armor-piercing class has a nickname in the armies of all parties after 1 year of development, gun mount. After all, the armor-piercing class is not for armor-piercing, but for the large weapons that can be installed on the armor-piercing. So Chen Ming seems to have driven 200 armor-piercing ships, but in fact, it is no different from going out with 200 tachyon spears. Such a mixed fleet can be said to have no ability to cope with various battlefield environments. It is the law enforcers in front, and the 200 tachyon spears in the back are fiercely output. It is simple and crude to a certain extent. And cruisers are even more so. All they can see at this time are Stardust class. Of course, the capabilities of this cruiser designed by Tachyon Technology Company are also well known by the people present. They all had some understanding of Chen Ming's previous fighting style and knew what kind of effect this kind of warship would have in Chen Ming's hands. So after imagining such a scene, several general officers who pursued tactical strategies were a little at a loss for words. Bai Quan was not surprised at all. Chen Ming liked to use more people to defeat fewer people and use force to suppress others. He never stopped using his psychic power. Problems that could be solved with firepower were not a problem in front of him. Such firepower was definitely enough to sweep across a galaxy. As long as there were no accidents in the galaxy of the mechanical race, it would only be a matter of time to eliminate the mechanical race. I just don't know if the mechanical race will transport the cargo hold they robbed away. This depends on Chen Ming's subsequent investigation. 1 minute later, Chen Ming's fleet had passed the end of the channel and was about to enter the hyperspace area of the galaxy in front of it. Bai Quan suddenly came out and reminded, "There are signs of disturbed emptying in the clouds near the location where the channel connects to the hyperspace area of the galaxy. indicating that there are often spaceships here. Bai Quan's reminder was, of course, because he was afraid that Chen Ming would not notice it and be attacked by the mechanical race in the galaxy. However, Chen Ming followed all the way through his own perception. He knew very well that this galaxy was the temporary base of the mechanical race. There may be mechanical race defense means in the hyperspace. Pay attention to safety. Understood. Chen Ming responded, closed his eyes directly, and focused all his attention on the fleet that was about to fight. Qiu Bowen stared at Chen Ming for a while. Even though he had known the effect of Chen Ming's psychic power before, he still couldn't understand it when he saw that Chen Ming could still use psychic power to control the spacecraft even though he had almost crossed the distance of the entire empire. Even if the psychic power of a level 6 psychic has a range of only the size of a galaxy, Chen Ming's psychic power effect has obviously surpassed that of a normal psychic. I don't know what secrets Chen Ming has. He shook his head and said with emotion or something, "This should be the largest scale battle that is about to break out since the conflict between us and the mechanical race began." But surprisingly, when Chen Ming left the channel and entered the hyperspace area belonging to the galaxy, there was no mechanical race troops in the hyperspace to block him. There was not even a warning spacecraft. The people present obviously didn't expect this to happen. Did we find the wrong place? Shouldn't we? Let's go in and take a look first. Okay. Just as the few people finished their brief words, the door of the conference room was suddenly knocked. "Come in." Qiu Bowen's words fell, and someone pushed the door in and handed him a document. He glanced at the empty space shown on the projection screen of the conference table and took advantage of the fact that the war had not started yet and said directly, "Chen Ming, do you need the Legion to provide you with some ships and war supplies?" Chen Ming immediately distracted, "Yes, of course." At the moment he said this, he sent a team of 5 destroyers, ended the hyperspace voyage ahead of time, activated the hyperspace channel system, and entered the galaxy. The situation inside the galaxy was also shown on the conference table in front of him. This is a galaxy with 6 planets. In the habitable zone of this galaxy, there is a planet that has obviously undergone a lot of industrial transformation. That is the destination of Chen Ming's trip. The target has been found, but Chen Ming did not act rashly. Because, around that planet, there are a lot of ships and the wreckage of a lot of orbital defense facilities. And the surface of the planet is constantly erupting with large areas of fire that can be seen from outside the planet. And these fires are still expanding. Someone? No. Something has arrived here faster than Chen Ming, destroying everything belonging to the mechanical race. No way. Looking at the dense debris-covered area around the planet sent back by the sensor, Chen Ming now knew why there was no spaceship left in the hyperspace area of the galaxy. It turned out that all of them had entered the galaxy to protect their base. Looking at the large area of fire still rising on the planet, Chen Ming suddenly had a bad premonition. But it shouldn't be so coincidental. Let's see. As Chen Ming adjusted the sensor accuracy of the reconnaissance fleet spacecraft and conducted a second scan, the specific damage of the wreckage of the ships and orbital defense facilities orbiting the planet also appeared in front of Chen Ming. After further confirmation, Chen Ming can make a judgment. The cause of these wreckages is that the spacecraft or defense facilities were shattered by some extremely powerful physical attack, and then the explosion caused by line damage or various reasons. This situation is quite familiar to Chen Ming. Sure enough, it is a phase behemoth. What else can cause such damage besides it? Turning his head to look at the situation on the planet, he guessed that the phase behemoth was causing trouble. It's really here. Chen Ming was a little nervous for a moment. He just had some ideas in his mind and said them casually, but when he arrived at the base of the mechanical race, he found that the phase behemoth had arrived before him. This, really. He didn't know what to say. How did the mechanical race offend the phase behemoth? How could they be targeted like this? Last time, they opened up a base and were demolished by the phase behemoth. As a result, this time it was demolished by the phase behemoth again. Chen Ming hasn't even started yet. Speaking of which, Chen Ming remembered that the phase behemoth chased the mechanical race's reinforcement fleet to the base they opened up. What's the reason this time? Of course, this is not the point now. Chen Ming didn't want to care about this phase behemoth. As long as the behemoth continues to attack the mechanical race, it will definitely be a good thing for him. What he has to do now is to find the mechanical race that stole the goods. He has to confirm whether the fleet that jumped away before has arrived here. Even if the attack of the phase monster might affect his fleet, he couldn't understand running away. But just when Chen Ming was thinking about finding the target, the images on the sensors sent back by his reconnaissance fleet in the galaxy suddenly showed the mechanical fleets that had attacked his fleet before. Not all of the fleets, only about half of these fleets were left at this time, consisting of a dozen cruisers and barely 100 small ships. They had just taken off from the planet that was being ravaged, escaped the gravity of the planet, and fled to the edge of the galaxy in a panic. The cruiser that robbed Chen Ming's cargo hold was also among them. It seems that the timing is just right. But while Chen Ming was glad that these ships did not run away directly, he also noticed a problem. It was still a matter of time. Adding up what happened before and after, it was almost an hour since the mechanical family attacked his fleet. Even if the jump destination of the mechanical family fleet when evacuating was not here, but a nearby galaxy, it was not far from the jump wave. It would take no more than 20 minutes to get here by the route. The mechanical race would definitely come here earlier than him, and would know earlier that the phase behemoths were attacking the base. Chen Ming saw that the fleet of the mechanical race appeared on the surface of the planet after looting, which seemed normal at first glance. But as long as he thought about it carefully, he would find the problem. The battle between the mechanical race and the phase behemoths here must have lasted for more than a while. Looking at the wreckage in the orbit of the planet, it can be seen that at least 1 or 2 hours have passed. At the latest, the battle broke out when the mechanical race that ambushed his freight fleet evacuated. In other words, these mechanical fleets had only 2 choices after the looting and the jump away. Either come to support, or just run away. There is no reason to come here and then run away. And those mechanical fleets were running away when they were seen by Chen Ming, and they were obviously not coming to support. After all, support must have weapons that can support, otherwise it is just giving it away for nothing. The supporting fleet should not flee in a panic like it is now. At least it should maintain a loose formation to involve the phase behemoths, right? Although this phase monster cannot be observed, its impact on the real world is considerable. As long as the physical distance is maintained, the destructive power of the phase monster will be greatly limited. Except for the surface of the Earth, of course. The buildings on the surface cannot be moved. If they are targeted by the monster, they will be demolished. But the fleet really has no such restrictions. What on earth did these mechanical fleets that robbed Chen Ming come back for? They can't leave the stolen cargo hold on this already doomed planet, right? Maybe there is a special reason? Chen Ming doesn't understand. But it's okay, he will understand soon. After determining the escape direction of the internal mechanical looting fleet, Chen Ming's fleet, which was in the hyperspace of the galaxy, immediately began to dispatch and approach the other side of the galaxy in the hyperspace, ready to ambush. The efficiency of movement in hyperspace is much higher than that in the normal universe environment, which can definitely give the fleeing mechanical race a big blow. Bai Quan, who was standing next to him, told Chen Ming several possible locations where the mechanical race's fleet might appear when leaving the galaxy. The mechanical race is now escaping, so they must pursue efficiency. Then they must enter the hyperspace in an extreme range that will not be affected by the galaxy's gravity well. So the location where they come out is actually predictable. Although now these mechanical races are in a hurry because of the phase behemoth, they can no longer take care of everything. The reconnaissance fleet sent out by Chen Ming was not discovered at all, and even if the location was slightly deviated, the impact would not be too great. But Chen Ming is definitely willing to listen to good suggestions. He immediately changed the ambush position slightly, and after noting Bai Quan's battlefield tips, he put all the ships into combat readiness and prepared to open fire at any time. While Chen Ming was preparing for the ambush, his reconnaissance fleet that entered the galaxy in advance chose to approach the attacked planet. Although looking at the debris around the planet, it can be basically confirmed that this was done by the phase behemoth. But he still wanted to see with his own eyes what those spaceships and buildings looked like when they were destroyed, so as to thoroughly determine the true situation. As Chen Ming's reconnaissance fleet approached, The specific situation on the planet was also returned to Chen Ming's eyes through the sensor. The mechanized mechanical city that occupied almost all the land on the planet has now become nearly half of the wasteland. There are broken mechanical buildings and mechanical individuals that have been shut down everywhere. They all have a common feature, that is, they are all destroyed by crushing attacks. Something huge and heavy crushed them. Even the surrounding land sank into the ground by more than 10 to dozens of meters. And these sinking traces are all in the shape of manta rays. After Chen Ming's reconnaissance fleet approached the planet to a certain distance and could determine the details of what happened on the planet through sensors, it did not continue to approach. Instead, it began to orbit the planet for reconnaissance. Not long after, he found traces of the activity of the phase behemoth, fresh traces. I saw it near an ocean on the planet, in a mineral mining area of the mechanical race. An existence that cannot be observed by the naked eye is constantly attacking this area. The method is very simple, just flutter on the surface like a fish out of water. Although the phase beast is only the size of an ordinary cruiser, its strong physical strength is enough to directly crash a cruiser of the same level. And its terrifying weight can leave terrible scars on the ground even if it just rolls casually, creating a bombardment that makes everything tremble. A large number of mechanical individuals are constantly fleeing this area with mechanical equipment or something. In addition, there are some newly produced mechanized psychic creatures of the mechanical race, trying to attack the phase beast with psychic power. However, all psychic effects are all in the air. This phase beast that cannot be observed by the naked eye and cannot be touched cannot be hurt by psychic power. The phase beast seems to have some deep hatred with the mechanical race, constantly attacking the mechanical race and constantly destroying everything they have. Chen Ming is not sure whether this phase beast is the same as the previous one. If it is, it will be interesting. If you want to be sure, it should be possible. The size of the imprint left on the ground on the planet shows that it is not much different from the previous one. As long as you can get the complete imprint details and compare it with the previous imprint, it is very likely that you can figure out whether it is the same one. However, there are other people studying the phase monster, so he doesn't need to pay more attention to it. Just don't provoke it now. Chen Ming carefully continued to let the reconnaissance fleet orbit around the planet. Continue to look for some important places on the planet. For example, various large warehouses that the mechanical race should have. When the reconnaissance fleet approached just now, they had actually found several warehouses, and those warehouses had been completely destroyed by the phase monster. However, Chen Ming wanted to go around again to see if there were any other large warehouses, in case there were really the batch of goods that were robbed from him, and they were not destroyed by the phase monster. After all, Chen Ming has not yet contacted the mechanical cruisers that are fleeing, and he is not sure whether the stolen energy crystal crabs are still on the cruisers or stored in the warehouses. He has to investigate. Go around the planet again and see if you can't find the warehouse. Retreat temporarily. After the fight with the phase monster is over, he will come back to see if there are any wreckages to clean up. Chen Ming controlled the fleet to speed up again. However, just as he was about to leave, he suddenly found that a spaceship that the mechanical race came to support suddenly launched a beam of light that was visible to the naked eye. It seemed straight, but if you look closely, you will find that it has been completely distorted. No, Chen Ming found that it seemed that it was not the beam that was distorted, but the space around the beam. It actually seemed to have successfully hit the phase monster in the phase space and disappeared, leaving half of it in the air. And the next move of the phase monster also confirmed what Chen Ming had just seen. The spaceship was immediately counterattacked by the phase monster. It was smashed directly from the bow to the stern by the monster. It seems that it completely failed to cause critical damage to the phase beast. But this beam weapon, which was destroyed within a few seconds of its appearance, caused all the generals in the conference room to stand up in an instant and move together in front of the screen projected by Chen Ming. Phase weapon. Although Chen Ming had just guessed that it was such a thing, when he heard several generals say this, he still couldn't help but ask, can the normal universe see weapons that attack phase space? Qiu Bowen knew that Chen Ming had learned about the phase technology, so he did not hide it. He said, of course not, but that beam is just a laser pointer. It uses the resonance of the phase weapon in the phase space to display visible light in the normal world. Banned. The key is that the light is cut off. This can only be the effect of phase weapons. The machine tribe has also begun to research phase technology since it was attacked by the phase beast last time, and it seems to be very close to our progress. A lieutenant general next to him said, "Then they are probably more efficient than us. We have started researching it earlier, but we were still caught up by the machine race." Another lieutenant general also retorted, "They are shining relics. The shining civilization must have phase technology. The mechanical race just picked up the phase technology again, and of course it will be faster than us." Bai Quan did not participate in the discussion among several generals on the research progress of phase technology. He was more concerned about more practical things. "Chen Ming, if you have the chance, find a way to obtain the wreckage of the spacecraft that used phase weapons. This is very important for our research on phase technology." However, Chen Ming did not agree directly. "I don't think it's feasible. This giant phase beast is still here. I can't rush in with it. The most I can do is wait for it to finish fighting, and then I will pick up the trash." "That's okay. Let's look for another chance." "Okay." Chen Ming noted down the coordinates of this location and continued to move the reconnaissance fleet away. But just when he asked the ships to take such action, his fleet was paralyzed and received a special frequency band communication. Communication? Chen Ming immediately connected, and a sound that sounded like something submerged in the deep sea suddenly came from the communication channel. This sound across the deep sea was very vague. Chen Ming could hear that it was sharp, but not harsh. And there was also a vague emotion that appeared in Chen Ming's heart that he couldn't sense clearly. Chen Ming suddenly felt confused. The source of the communication signal is also vague, but it is definitely on the planet in front of you. Is this from the mechanical tribe? Or rather, communication signals from the planet are still being continuously received by Chen Ming's ship. But Chen Ming still couldn't hear clearly what was contained in this voice. He thought for a while and connected the communication device of the reconnaissance fleet in the conference room and played the audio data received by the communication device in the conference room. After playing the sound he just recorded, Chen Ming asked, "What does this sound mean?" "Sound? What sound? What are you saying?" Question mark. This time it was Chen Ming's turn to be confused. "I just played an audio clip. Didn't you hear it?" "No." Chen Ming didn't understand, so he simply played it again. His ears could clearly hear the sound, but judging from the expressions on the faces of the people around him, they heard nothing. Chen Ming obviously used the recorded audio file directly. He could hear the sound, so why couldn't others? Chen Ming immediately parsed the data of the saved audio file. He unexpectedly discovered that there was no sound wave in any frequency band in this audio file. Whether it is sounds that humans can hear, or ultrasonic and infrasound waves that humans cannot hear, there is nothing. There were no sound waves in any frequency band, but he could hear the sound from this file. Seeing that the expressions of the people around him were a little strange, Chen Ming could only say, "Maybe I heard wrong." He stopped the audio and continued to control the ship. The audio band sound received by his reconnaissance fleet became more and more immersed in the deep sea as the fleet moved away from its previous position, becoming more and more blurred, and gradually became less receivable. This strengthened his suspicion. However, Chen Ming pretended to be stupid and avoided the topic of audio. But the people present were all smart people, and Chen Ming's performance didn't look like he was faking it. He must have heard something. But they couldn't hear it, and Chen Ming didn't want to say more, so there was no way to ask. Just keep it in your mind as a secret. Maybe you can use it one day in the future? Several people watched in silence as Chen Ming continued to operate. At the same time, he observed the reconnaissance fleet investigating the planet's surface and the main fleet ambushing in hyperspace. The moment the machine race fleet barely escaped the clutches of the phase monster and arrived at the edge of the galaxy through the reconnaissance fleet, activated the hyperspace channel engine. "It's over." I don't know who said that. The mechanical fleet stepped into Chen Ming's encirclement without any preparation. When the ship enters hyperspace, its speed relative to the coordinate point at the moment it enters hyperspace will return to zero, and it will not be able to accelerate to a speed that allows it to dodge. The large weapons of 200 armor-piercing ships and 4 afterglow cruisers were already aimed at them. Chen Ming didn't even use the stardust level to release the meteor fighter plane. The torrent of particles from more than 200 tachyon spears had already swept across the entire battlefield. Almost the entire mechanical fleet was instantly destroyed and exploded into fireworks. However, Chen Ming also deliberately left a gap in the fire network for the cruiser with cargo. He had to make sure the cargo was still on the ship, and it was this gap that gave the mechanical fleet a little vitality. After a round of attacks, in addition to the cruiser that Chen Ming spared on purpose, there was actually another cruiser that Chen Ming had never seen and escaped by hiding behind the cruiser that Chen Ming spared. And Chen Ming has never seen this cruiser starting the jump engine that cannot be used again in a short period of time by those cruisers that Chen Ming has seen. The ship that Chen Ming let go stood between Chen Ming's fleet and it, blocking it tightly. In order to avoid accidental damage to the ship, Chen Ming only deployed firepower on one side when preparing for the ambush. Therefore, Chen Ming really couldn't fire directly for a while. However, he could be regarded as discovering the reason why the machine race's fleet did not retreat directly or go to support. Apparently, it was because of this ship. These ships probably wanted to pick it up, so they returned to the planet attacked by the phase beast. This ship is important. Then Chen Ming definitely can't let it go. It just so happened that he also had the equipment to block the jump engine, which was given to him by Bai Quan. Although he is using an obsolete model, it is not that the obsolete model cannot be used anymore. As Chen Ming directly used spiritual energy to transfer and activate the equipment, the spacecraft that started the jump engine immediately lay down, and the engine suffered a brief malfunction. It was during this short breakdown time that Chen Ming's fleet had already detoured. The crossfire directly blew up the engine of the ship, protected by the mechanical clan. Wanna run? Can't run even a little bit. Everyone else in the conference room could tell from the images transmitted back that the purpose of the mechanical clan was to protect the ship. This ship must be special and have its own unique value. It would make a lot of sense if it could be picked up by the Legion, but none of them spoke. Because the boat was at Chen Ming's place, it was impossible for Chen Ming to spit it out. If Chen Ming himself had been recruited to perform a task, they would still have reason to ask Chen Ming to take out the things. But the current situation is that Chen Ming discovered the stronghold of the Machine Clan. When attacking the stronghold, he encountered the ship and captured it. It was impossible for Chen Ming to hand over the seizure. Anyway, if Chen Ming finds something that one person cannot eat, sooner or later he will hand it over to the Legion for processing. For example, the crystal crab was something Chen Ming got himself. He did business with the Legion before, but found that he couldn't take the cake of the entire empire, so didn't he leave it to the Legion to handle it in the end? Therefore, as long as it is something that would be more beneficial to the Legion, Chen Ming will definitely give it to the Legion. He is not stupid. Of course, it would be better if more information about the mechanical clan could be obtained from this spaceship. After all, Chen Ming was about to participate in the war between the Machine Clan, and it was impossible for him to conceal any information about the Machine Clan. Bai Quan doesn't matter anymore. His relationship with Chen Ming is different from other people. If there is anything he needs to know, he can just ask. If he doesn't know, then the Legion doesn't need to know. So now, everyone has a tacit understanding and just pretends not to have seen it. He watched silently as Chen Ming dismantled all the weapons of the two cruisers in front of him and forcibly took control of the two spaceships. Planning to jump away, Xiao Bowen suddenly said at this time, "Stop for a moment, Chen Ming, can I ask you to do something?" Chen Ming, who was excitedly controlling the two cruisers of the mechanical family with the data cable pulled out of the afterglow core on the cruiser, was distracted and asked, "What's going on?" "The fleet you sent over for reconnaissance should not leave for the time being." "Wait a moment." Faced with Xiao Bowen's request, Chen Ming asked, "What do you want to do?" "I want your fleet to wait there temporarily until the Legion's fleet arrives for further investigation. If your fleet suffers any losses, the Legion can reimburse it for you. Now is a great opportunity." "What chance?" Seeing Chen Ming's uninterested look, Xiao Bowen could only say rationally, "Where your fleet is now, an important stronghold belonging to the Machinery Clan has just been destroyed. The forces surrounding the Machinery Clan must be when it is at its most vulnerable. It happens to be the weakness of the mechanical race. There are a large number of mechanical remains that can be obtained, and there are even samples of mechanized psychic creatures of the mechanical race that we have only a preliminary understanding of. Studying these wrecks will definitely be of great benefit. We can all see that this must be a new colonial stronghold developed by the machine tribe in recent times. The industrialization level is quite complete and can be expanded at any time. There will definitely be the most advanced technological applications belonging to the mechanical family here. Our technology is developing, and so are the mechanical clans. It is beneficial to have access to their advanced technology, and the planet itself has its value. The fact that it can become the location of the mechanical clan's stronghold shows that the galaxy itself has something special, so there is a high possibility that the mechanical clan will not abandon this place. We can leave something human on it that will serve a purpose in the future. We definitely can't miss it. After Xiaoji ended with reason, Qiu Boyan also knew that Chen Ming was a master who would not let go of the rabbit before he saw the rabbit, and then he started to lure him for profit. This operation initially only involves you, but if you are willing to continue, it can be regarded as an additional invitation from Gallo's frontline military headquarters to participate in a mission to achieve military goals. Middle. Afraid that Chen Ming would not understand what he meant, Qiu Boyan said again. When performing military tasks, the military in some places are not confident in their own strength. They can invite other similar military departments to participate. Usually, the two departments conduct some economic, material, or technical exchanges in return for being invited. Individual invitations are rare, but not unprecedented. The superior department is also responsible for communication, exchanging materials between the two military organizations, and then dispatching personnel. Within the organization, expatriates will be given contribution points or other rewards. This is the rule of our army. Bai Quan suddenly interjected and added, "Actually, our legion is also part of the frontline military headquarters. The ones participating in the frontline military headquarters are the legion itself. There are also several legions in the Star Territory United Front that Gallo participates in. The current operation is equivalent to using the frontline military legion and the legion itself to conduct personnel scheduling." Chen Ming frowned and considered Bai Quan's meaning, then asked, "Why enrich your own pockets?" Qiu Boyan quickly denied, "You can't say that, because you are the director of an independent, extraordinary research institute. Under the name of Bai Quan branch, the only ones who can dispatch you in the Legion are Bai Quan and the Legion commander. But don't you listen? Listen to others. So when the Legion commander is on the other side of the front line and Bai Quan is not at work, no one can dispatch you casually. Theoretically, this is really the only way to dispatch you. Although, to be honest, it is indeed a bit illegal, but your situation is quite special. No one will bother with this. Of course, the premise is that you accept it." Qiu Boyan's tone of voice could be said to be quite tactful, but Chen Ming still couldn't help but said, "Isn't this still lining his own pockets?" Qiu Boyan raised his forehead and said, "The Legion won't have to rely on this to earn supplies or anything. By then, the accounts will be even and no one will lose." "No loss?" Chen Ming thought about it for a moment and asked, "It's like the materials were circulated between the front line and the Legion, and then the contribution points were given to me for no reason, right?" Chen Ming directly stated the actual situation in this way, which made Qiu Boyan a little embarrassed. He nodded slightly and said, "Just understand it that way. After all, contribution points cannot be given casually. There must be a reason. This is the reason." To be honest, Chen Ming felt that this was a bit too political, but since he was the beneficiary, he actually had nothing to say about this matter. But he still had to ask some key questions. "If no one is my superior, how will the contribution points be calculated?" Bai Quan answered for Qiu Boyan. "Under normal circumstances, based on the ratio of material exchange between the frontline military headquarters and the Legion, I can get some contribution points, and I will distribute them. There is a minimum ratio that requires me to give you at least a certain amount of contribution points. I can keep the rest for myself, or I can give it all to you. Normally, I will give it all directly no matter what the situation. Contribution points are a unique way for psychers to quantify military merit. Who seems to have no problem deducting this?" The distributor himself also has some additional rewards, so there is no need to be greedy. Qiu Bowen then said, but Bai Quan is not in the branch now and is not within his scope of authority, so the Legion will directly calculate the contribution points to you and give it to you directly. Chen Ming asked again, does that mean that the contribution points for the exchange of materials are also randomly filled in? Qiu Bowen did not answer immediately. Because this is the key to the matter, the contribution points are the only ones that are generated out of nowhere. He can't say anything. If a little contribution point is given, it will be given. If too much contribution point leads to the end of the supervision, then the problem will be big. So he said more conservatively, basic third-class merit, at least second-class merit for mission completion, first-class merit, and special merit depend on the situation. If there are major achievements, then even if I don't want to give you first-class merit, there will definitely be others who will give it to you. According to the rules of the Legion, the third-class merit is counted as 500 contribution points, and the second-class merit is counted as 2,000 contribution points, which is acceptable to Chen Ming. After all, it is just arranging the spacecraft to fly here for a few days. Even if the spacecraft is lost, there will be compensation, so there will be no loss at all. Don't we need to inform other people about this? For example, the frontline military? The frontline military is now headed by the Legion. We don't need anyone else to tell us what to do. We must not do anything too extreme. There are people from the Empire supervising us. But our internal affairs don't matter. Qiu Bowen added fuel to the fire and said, as long as this mission is successful, you, the key person who completes the mission, can also get an extra military merit. We will never treat you unfairly. 2 benefits. It sounds very tempting. But he was not overwhelmed by the temptation. He continued to ask, who will be responsible for this matter? You are now stationed at the headquarters, and Bai Quan is also at the headquarters. Who can be responsible? Of course, the frontline military department is responsible. Qiu Bowen answered quickly, and Bai Quan is still a member of the frontline now, just temporarily back for further study. And I will also be transferred to the frontline when the war phase changes. At that time, all the finishing work will be responsible for us. As for the current specific command, it is the current person in charge of the frontline military department, Admiral Guoyan. Chen Ming turned his head and glanced at Bai Quan. Seeing Bai Quan nod, it means that Guoyan is a trustworthy person. Chen Ming has no objection. I can help you do things. In fact, there is another more important, or the most important reason for agreeing to this matter. That is, Chen Ming originally planned to let the fleet stay. He is still very interested in the phase creature and the things left by the mechanical race. It's just that he doesn't plan to do this in front of others. So since Qiu Bowen asked him to do it openly, why not do it? Although there seem to be many irregularities in this matter, Bai Quan would not cheat his good friend and son-in-law. Even if the whole thing went wrong, the biggest loss for him was only a few destroyers. But even if he lost the armor-piercing with antimatter reactor and engine, the cost was just that. With the manufacturing technology and basic materials, the remaining costs were a fraction. Chen Ming could also recycle the afterglow core at any time if there was an accident. To be honest, the most expensive thing he lost was the tachyon spear. However, if the tachyon spear was bought directly from the tachyon technology company, it would be expensive. After all, there are patent fees. But Chen Ming obviously would not spend money in vain. He disassembled the tachyon spear and researched it himself. The cost of making it with materials by himself is at least 2/3 less than buying it directly. Even if a few doors are lost, it is not a big problem. It has to be said that patents really make money. It can be seen from the fact that Chen Ming can even support an entire pioneering fleet by himself with a few patents. As for what the Tachyon Technology Company would think if they knew Chen Ming did this, Chen Ming could only say. Anyway, his warships did not appear in the Empire. If Tachyon Technology had the ability, it could just come and collect patent fees. It was no big deal. They did not know how many Tachyon spears he had, so how could they collect the money? At most, the Legion would help him pay. So now that Qiu Bowen was willing to pay some costs, Chen Ming was still very happy to do something. He even asked very considerately, "How many ships do you need? Where do you need my ship to stop?" Or what do you want to do? Chiu Bowen was also relieved. If this matter could succeed, it would also be of great benefit to him. As the commander who issued the order, as long as the people below made achievements, he would naturally share some of the credit. And this achievement would also allow him to get more resources after he went to the front line. Chiu Bowen said to Chen Ming, I need 10 law enforcers and 20 armor breakers to temporarily stay in that galaxy, with my own safety as the priority. The most important task is to help us confirm the situation of the phase beasts, the arrival time of the mechanical reinforcements, and the progress of their actions to clean up their own planets. The speed of our Legion's ships is not as fast as yours, and it will take several days to get there. So you may need to keep monitoring there and stay awake. How long will it take exactly? The fleet with sufficient supplies will jump at any cost, including the time cost of advanced reconnaissance. It will arrive in about 4 days. If it is faster, the subsequent evacuation will be more dangerous, so this is the shortest. Chen Ming suddenly asked, What if I can provide you with a safe jump point? Chiu Bowen looked a little surprised, but he immediately got used to Chen Ming occasionally pulling out some important things that ordinary people would never think of, and said, The time can be shortened by 1/3. That's good. I'll send you the coordinates then. Besides, it's actually quite easy to solve the problem of me staying awake. Is there an afterglow core? What level? Just Gamma. Wait a minute. Chiu Bowen immediately picked up the terminal and contacted him. 5 minutes later, a person delivered a palm-sized iron-red Gamma core into the conference room. Chen Ming directly used psychic energy to control the core and connected the core to the computer in the conference room. At the same time, psychic energy was used to build a psychic communication network between this afterglow core and the afterglow core of the galaxy of the mechanical race. It is said to be a communication network, but in fact it can also transmit picture signals. Let Yuhui from the mechanical tribe transmit all data back through this core. The commands received by this afterglow core can also be transmitted to the front line. There is no time delay or impact. Let this afterglow core help Chen Ming control the fleet of the mechanical tribe. Although mental power still consumes Chen Ming's own, Chen Ming only needs to expend mental power and does not need to spend extra attention. After finishing it, Chen Ming pushed the computer to Chiu Bowen and said, Okay, come on, try to give the command. Chiu Bowen glanced at Chen Ming again in great surprise, and then tried to use the computer to issue a few simple instructions to the fleet on the mechanical side. The effect is very good. Chiu Bowen also thought of more from this computer. The Empire has super-light communication technology, but it cannot do so on the front lines of the war. Because super-light speed communication requires super-light speed communication base station coverage, super-light speed communication cannot be achieved where there are no base stations. It is impossible to safely erect a base station in a place like the front line, and even if it is erected, it may not be able to be maintained. Chen Ming directly ignored the basic conditions for the development of any empire for many years and directly relied on spiritual energy to solve all problems. Chiu Bowen felt even more that Chen Ming was a particularly outrageous person. And there is another special thing about Chen Ming, that is, whose spiritual energy can be shared with other conscious beings, who can share the complete effects of psychic energy with others. It seems that there is a Chinmian who was killed by Chen Ming who can do part of it, but that Chinmian just stole other people's spiritual energy. Instead of directly sharing one's own spiritual energy and still maintaining absolute control, Chiu Bowen knew the general effect of Chen Ming's psychic energy before. But at that time, he just thought that Chen Ming was a slightly special psychic. He has seen a lot of special psychers, but not many can really grow up, so he doesn't care too much about Chen Ming. But now, after witnessing with my own eyes the effect of being able to share this power across time and space, he felt that he had to think carefully about his attitude towards Chen Ming. After handing the computer to Chiu Bowen, Chen Ming felt that there was nothing for him to do in the conference room for the time being, and what he should do had been done. But before leaving, he had one more question. By the way, General Chiu, what you promised before. What Chen Ming was referring to was Chiu Bowen's previous question about Chen Ming's need for Legion ships and material assistance. Several people present thought that Chen Ming's fleet was going to fight a fierce battle, but who would have thought that it would be intercepted by the phase beast? But Xiao Bowen had already agreed to this before Chen Ming's fleet entered the galaxy, and Chen Ming could not let him swallow his words again. Xiao Bowen was already considering changing his attitude towards Chen Ming at this time, so now he said decisively, "Of course I will give it to you, whatever you need." Bai Quan had already guessed what Chen Ming wanted at this time, and Chen Ming was very consistent with his thoughts and said, "Phase ship." Although Chen Ming was not very interested in the mechanical race's spaceship with phase weapons. When Bai Quan asked Chen Ming to find a way to obtain the phased weapon technology of the mechanical tribe, his attitude was just to let it go. After all, that is only the technology of phase weapons, not the technology of phase ships. This is the same as the battleship technology, which he has not learned yet. He doesn't have any foundation, and it doesn't mean much if he gets it. At most, it can be used as a special weapon. If you really want to master phase technology, you still have to start from the basics. To learn the basics, you still have to go to the Naval Research Institute. Although he has not been there yet, as an honorary member of the Ship Research Institute, he has heard about several phase spacecraft projects of the Ship Research Institute. The most important project is even being followed up by the director of the Ship Research Institute, and he is cooperating with several other ship research institutes from different organizational departments. He was also quite interested. But a complete phase ship is completely different. With such a spaceship in hand, Chen Ming can even use the deep repair spiritual power he has on it to erase all the irrationalities in the research and development process. Become a true phase ship. After Chen Ming has more opportunities to come into contact with phase ships and masters the technology of phase ships, he can further publish the things he has researched using psychic energy. The financial support that further patents can provide Chen Ming based on the phase ship will not be bad. Xiao Bowen immediately agreed. This is no problem at all, but the phase ship is currently only available in the laboratory, the ship laboratory, and the Legion commander has given you permission before. If you need one, we can build one specially for you. You can go and get it at any time. But you have to know that our research on phase ships is still in the development stage. All phase ships are experimental models and are definitely not warships that can go on the battlefield. If you really need a complete ship, you have to cooperate a little bit to conduct experiments. Your psychic powers will definitely be helpful to the experiments. I have to explain this to you in advance. Chen Ming nodded and said, "No problem. I also have the idea of going to the Ship Research Institute, but for now I still focus on the Psionics Research Institute." Chen Ming estimated that it would be in the middle of the war when he went to the Naval Research Institute. Because he went to the Psychic Research Institute now for two things. One is to study the plan to counter the mechanical hive mind network of the mechanical race at the Psionics Research Institute, as well as the psychic equipment of various mechanical races, and the other is to study the stable cultivation of spiritual enlightenment nerves. What matters is the former. After the early war between the Empire and the Machine Tribe was almost over, more detailed information related to the Machine Tribe was obtained, and the basics of the new psychic weapons of the Machine Tribe were understood. There is a high probability that the Psychic Research Institute will not be the main force in the war. After all, wars are won by battleships. Therefore, he would have to go to the Ship Research Institute sooner or later, and Chen Ming would have to get in touch with phase ship research sooner or later. After Xiao Bowen received Chen Ming's reply, he stopped telling Chen Ming whether there was something or not. He decisively agreed to Chen Ming's request. When the time came, he would personally go and ask for help. The Ship Research Institute would definitely not mind bringing a ship to Chen Ming. After Chen Ming confirmed that he really had nothing to do with him, he stood up directly. He wanted to return to the Psychic Research Institute to continue his research. By the way, he had to summarize the gains from this small-scale operation. Have to say, although the scale of the operation was quite small, it was still very rewarding for him. That special audio, that special mechanical cruiser, these two things have secrets, and Chen Ming has to find out the secrets. Just as Chen Ming took a few steps out of the conference room, he used his spiritual power to check his harvest. Bai Quan also followed out and stopped Chen Ming. "Are you free? Let's chat?" "Okay." After Chen Ming agreed, Bai Quan took him to another empty room in their building. After closing the door, Bai Quan asked curiously, "What is that audio?" Chen Ming asked somewhat speechlessly, "You called me here to ask about this?" "That's not the case. It's just curiosity. Although he was a little embarrassed, Chen Ming still replied seriously. My ship received a communication frequency, and then I heard some special sounds from this frequency, but none of you can hear it. So I initially suspect that this voice is the voice of the phase creature. I plan to go to the Ship Research Institute on the pretext of needing a phase ship to see if I can use phase space-related technology to get the audio. I see. After satisfying his curiosity, Bai Quan finally got back to the business. I just received a piece of news here, and there is a rumor spreading outside. What news? Some people are questioning whether you deliberately let the machine race attack the fleet. Bai Quan said that someone questioned Chen Ming. But Chen Ming's first reaction was not the question itself, but the reason that led to the question. The news was spread so quickly? Logically speaking, the people who knew about this matter were the few people in the conference room just now, Chiu Bowen, Bai Quan, and the other two lieutenant generals. As a result, before the matter was even over, someone had already known the news and even began to question him. This made Chen Ming a little at a loss for words for a moment. Bai Quan also knew why Chen Ming asked this question and explained, because the result of this matter is good. Your fleet was attacked, and eventually a base of the mechanical race was destroyed, which is a good thing no matter how you look at it. If the result is not good, it won't be so fast. Now Chen Ming heard the reason. It seems that the few people sitting in the conference room just now were all fueling the flames. Indeed, this should be done. Before the war between the Empire and the mechanical race begins, actively announcing some examples of achievements in the war will greatly improve the overall morale. Chen Ming can understand it, but he just didn't react at first. After understanding the cause and effect of this incident, Chen Ming stopped worrying and asked Bai Quan, "What do those people who question me mean? Are they questioning me for being robbed on purpose? Being robbed by the mechanical tribe is not a good thing. But it's normal for someone to question. To be honest, if I were someone else and heard that I was robbed by the mechanical tribe, I wouldn't believe it." Bai Quan smiled. Many people know that Chen Ming's psychic power can control all machines, and the mechanical tribe is also included. So this makes it seem outrageous that Chen Ming was robbed by the mechanical tribe, but this is the fact. Some people think that you did this to cheat the Legion's support materials and funds. Could it be someone from Chiu Bowen's side? Originally, Chen Ming thought that it was normal for someone to question, but when he heard Bai Quan say that other people questioned his point, Chen Ming subconsciously had this new idea. Bai Quan said repeatedly, not really, not really. The People's Congress will not find someone to scold you just because you took something from him. In fact, some people in our faction also said so, but what they meant was that you actually learned to cheat funds so quickly, and they suspected that I led you astray. This? Chen Ming spread his hands, indicating that he had nothing to say. Bai Quan suddenly moved closer to Chen Ming and whispered, "Did you do it on purpose?" Chen Ming subconsciously wanted to answer no, but after careful consideration, he answered, "I don't know either." After hearing this, Bai Quan returned to his normal sitting position. "Then I would rather believe that you really made a mistake. Although it may have been an accident at first, I feel that when you discovered the mechanical tribe's base, you planned to take advantage of the situation. Use this opportunity to seize the mechanical tribe's things, and at the same time get some extra benefits from the Legion. It's not that it's not possible. It's good to cheat the funds occasionally. The Legion can't use up the funds every year. Every year, it has to find ways to make the funds overspend. Why is that? Because if the Legion's funds are not used up, it will get less next year. So it's okay to cheat the funds occasionally. But you can tell me all the plans in advance." Chen Ming was silent and nodded slowly. He really wanted to ask, "I didn't know I had this idea. How did you know?" But now he looked back. His subconscious actions seemed to be aimed at this purpose. There was nothing wrong. Maybe after being attacked, his subconscious felt that he could get benefits in the base of the mechanical tribe and get support from the Legion, so he did it. He just agreed. No need to say more. So Chen Ming thought about it and simply responded to Bai Quan's first sentence. "Actually, this shouldn't be considered a mistake, because I have made all the subsequent preparations, but the mechanical race is more prepared than me. And the next time I continue to transport goods, I may still use only one cruiser." Unless it is really the most important thing, I will directly use psychic energy to jump. Bai Quan asked in confusion, is your mental power enough to support the jump? Of course it is enough. Chen Ming said, but I can't rely on me to transport everything I have. I want to build a reasonable transportation network, not a transportation network that can only exist by me. Just like that batch of energy crystal crabs, even if it was attacked by the mechanical race once, it is still walking slowly on the road. I won't touch it with psychic energy. Bai Quan didn't ask Chen Ming what to do if the fleet was attacked again. Chen Ming must have been prepared. What he cares more about now is the hidden meaning of Chen Ming's words. You are still thinking about going outside. Chen Ming did not deny Bai Quan and said, you know the reason. Bai Quan was speechless, because he knew that Chen Ming had really seen too many troubles in the empire. Some of them were disgusting even for him when he came here most of the time, not to mention Chen Ming. He couldn't possibly persuade him. He could only hope that Chen Ming would have his own considerations and not abandon Chengxinghai. Then let's do this. Bai Quan didn't say anything Chen Ming didn't like to hear and simply left here. Chen Ming also left the military base in a shuttle shortly afterwards. What happened next here depends on other people's handling, and he just needs to wait for the inspection results. He has to do some other things now. For example, confirm the situation of the 2 captured mechanical cruisers. After all the weapons were removed, the 2 captured mechanical cruisers were connected to the data line of the Yuhui Corps and controlled by Chen Ming. After several rounds of jumps, they were sent back to Chen Ming's pioneering base. One was the cruiser that had seized the goods before, and the other was protected by other cruisers. At this time, they were quietly suspended in the planetary orbit of Chen Ming's pioneering base, waiting for Chen Ming's inspection. Since the purpose of Chen Ming's coming here this time was for the cruiser that seized his goods. So now, he also directly focused on this cruiser. This cruiser belonging to the mechanical race is somewhat different from the standard level cruiser of the mechanical race. It has undergone some modifications and has an additional device for capturing objects drifting in the cosmic environment. Inside this device, all the cargo holds that Chen Ming lost were lying intact. The interiors of these cargo holds were also intact, and a large number of energy crystal crabs in a frozen hibernation state were also quietly placed in them, waiting for subsequent disposal. It seems that there is no need to worry about the mechanical race obtaining energy crystal technology. Even if they have discovered the special nature of energy crystals through scanning the cargo holds, they have no way to get the energy crystal crab species in a short time. After all, the only remaining energy crystal crabs are either with Yu Hui or in Chen Ming's hands. The ones in Chen Ming's hands were just lost. The ones in Yu Hui's hands. As long as the mechanical race is not stupid, they will not fight with Yu Hui on the eve of the war with the Empire. The mechanical race in this star field cannot be compared with the Empire in terms of war potential. Two-line or even multi-line warfare will definitely kill them. So Chen Ming should not have to worry about these problems in the short term. As for how to deal with this batch of energy crystal crabs, Chen Ming's Colossus was still on the way to the Empire. He planned to use psychic energy to send it directly to the Colossus and say that the spaceship behind it would catch up and stuff the stolen goods back. No one saw it anyway. Chen Ming thought so and did it immediately. Several cargo holds containing frozen energy crystal crabs disappeared in front of Chen Ming in an instant. They appeared in the empty space of the Colossus's cargo hold. At this moment, thousands of creatures were transmitted through the Scarlet Dimension, which still made Chen Ming's mental power feel a certain pressure. Fortunately, when Chen Ming just discovered that the creatures were in a frozen state, the need for consciousness protection was not great, so he would not exhaust his mental power after sending a batch. After sending the energy crystal crabs, Chen Ming specially observed the capture device on the cruiser that robbed the energy crystal crabs. It's not about the structure of this thing, but about the time when this thing was installed. By comparing this device with other devices on these mechanical cruisers that are prone to wear and tear and can show specific wear conditions, Chen Ming can be sure that this device must have been modified later. And the modification time is very recent, just within a month. This cannot be a modification used by the mechanical family to salvage space junk. After all, Using a combat cruiser for salvage is as outrageous as using an anti-tank rocket launcher with a front bayonet to spear fish in the water. So Chen Ming always believed that this must be something that the mechanical family prepared in advance to target him. But he still didn't know how the mechanical family determined the location of his warship and how they found his fleet. Is it just relying on that stronghold? And why is this stronghold so far away from the mechanical family's star field? The last time the mechanical family expanded outward, it was only less than half a star field in common sense. This time it actually extended a star field directly outward? This strange sign made Chen Ming have to suspect that the mechanical family had other actions, and was this action aimed at him? Chen Ming's fleet was exploring, and occasionally he could find scattered mechanical tribes on some planets. Chen Ming had no way of confirming whether these mechanical tribes were in contact with the mechanical tribes in the mechanical tribe star field. Whether he had transmitted the situation of his fleet's exploration to the mechanical tribes in the mechanical tribe star field. If he couldn't confirm, it meant that he couldn't deny it, and things that couldn't be completely denied had the possibility of happening. Therefore, Chen Ming suspected that the mechanical tribe had discovered his fleet, and then was ready to find an opportunity to kill the fleet, and even wanted to kill Chen Ming himself in the fleet. After all, they were not Yu Hui, and they would not have greedy thoughts and want to use the chilling nerve extractor to extract his chilling nerve. For the mechanical tribe, anything that hindered their existence would inevitably be completely eliminated. Combined with the various preparations made by the mechanical tribe this time, Chen Ming felt that there was a great possibility that the mechanical tribe was planning an action against him. As for the reason, Chen Ming had just talked to Bai Quan about the issue of morale. Before the war began, it was good for the morale of the soldiers to have achieved results in the battlefield behind enemy lines. Although the mechanical race has extreme hatred for humans, they are not completely ignorant of humans. They also understand the significance of human morale. So they also know that if a fleet belonging to humans is wiped out by the mechanical race before the war begins, what kind of negative impact will it bring to humans? Although only a few people know about Chen Ming's fleet, even if it is wiped out, only a few people know. But from the perspective of the mechanical race, Chen Ming is a psychic candidate who has received the order of the Empire to expand abroad. If such a person is lost, it will definitely be a heavy blow to the Empire, so their actions are logical. This can completely explain why the mechanical race did this. This should not be considered as Chen Ming's self-indulgent feelings. After all, the mechanical race does know that Chen Ming exists. But this statement is also problematic. Because even if Chen Ming captured a cruiser and turned out a complete database, he could not completely determine whether this situation would happen. There is no way to be sure, which means that this matter may really be just Chen Ming's random guess and will not happen at all. Chen Ming can only gamble now. When gambling, Chen Ming will only bet on one result, that is, he loses. So Chen Ming must consider whether to temporarily give up the close-range regional development and exploration and directly let the fleet go to the next jump location. But there is no rush to come up with a result for this moment. The plan of the mechanical race has just been frustrated, and the phase behemoth has set its butt on fire. Before the fire is put out, the mechanical race will not risk being infiltrated by the Empire to find Chen Ming. He still has time. So now, Chen Ming removed the useless capture device from this mechanical cruiser and stuffed it into his cruiser inventory. Speaking of which, Chen Ming actually has 3 mechanical cruisers on hand, for including this one. The interior of the mechanical cruiser has a core chip exclusive to the mechanical ship, which has a similar effect to the afterglow core but worse. Chen Ming does not need to consume the upper limit of the ships he can control to control these cruisers. It's just that when facing the mechanical race, Chen Ming doesn't want to take out the mechanical cruiser to fight the enemy. After all, the other firepower is enough. If the mechanical cruiser is taken out, it may increase the threat level of the mechanical clan. Chen Ming does not want the mechanical clan to think about him day and night, so it is better to restrain himself a little. Although he is not much better with these 200 armor-piercing ships, but it is not a big problem. After Chen Ming threw a mechanical clan cruiser into his fleet reserve list, he focused on another cruiser. This is an ordinary mechanical clan standard combat model cruiser. Like the previous one, basically all places are ordinary, only the most core, where the mechanical clan cruiser chip should be installed, there is one more thing. A 1-meter square, spherical as a whole, but in the 6 directions of up, down, left, right, front, and back, the grid has a columnar extension of the mechanical creation. The precision of this creation is completely different from the surrounding mechanical clan warships, and it can even be said that it is not in the same era. Through psychic observation of the internal structure, its specialness can be seen with the naked eye. This mechanical creation is called personality core. Chen Ming's psychic power instantly mastered the use of the personality core. At the same time, he also understood why the fleet of the mechanical race took the risk of being killed by the phase beast to take it out of the planet and send it away. Because it is the basis for the manufacture of the mechanical race's mothership. It is the core of a mechanical race fleet. The mechanical race mothership is a battleship-level spacecraft, and compared with the battleships of the Empire or Yuhui, the mothership is not a pure battleship, but a giant mechanical factory and war fortress. It has more comprehensive capabilities, and where it appears is where the mechanical race takes root. And the psychic fluctuations contained in it are telling Chen Ming that it is also the basis of the mechanical race's hive mind network. The basis of the Queen's hive mind network is pheromone. Chen Ming's hive mind network is the connection between his own psychic power and the Queen's mind, which is equivalent to using his psychic power and the Scarlet Dimension, which can cross space. The application method of the mechanical race's hive mind network is currently unknown, but it can be blocked with silent alloy, indicating that it is also related to psychic power. Now, the answer is in front of Chen Ming. It can be said that the mechanical race has invested a lot of money. The importance of this place is self-evident. Chen Ming even feels that this place may have been newly built by the mechanical race after he killed the mechanical race's colony last time. As a result, they finally developed the planet almost completely and were finally able to further explore other galaxies. They encountered the phase behemoth and provoked Chen Ming at this time, causing Chen Ming to come over and knock out the personality core with a club. It's a pity that Chen Ming's psychic power can only figure out how to use the personality core, but not its operating principle. Even if Chen Ming uses his psychic power to observe in depth, he can't see the specific effect. It can only see that there is a special structure made of psychic materials inside this thing, just like other relics of the Shining Civilization. But the psychic structure in the personality core is not as easy to figure out as the purgatory core. In Chen Ming's opinion, the difference in complexity between them is like the difference between himself 2 years ago and himself now. And there is a part inside this personality core that is really something that even Chen Ming now can't understand at all. An extremely complex electronic device structure. The electrical signals running inside it make Chen Ming dazzled when he observes it with psychic power, and he can't tell the meaning of each structure at all. It's like a brain in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming knows that he is using this kind of brain, but he can't understand the working principle of the brain. No, this metaphor seems a bit inappropriate, because Chen Ming reacted that he didn't seem to need a brain now, but the meaning is almost the same. Inside the personality core, what is in front of Chen Ming is an extremely complex electronic brain. Chen Ming can't do any in-depth research on it at all. It doesn't belong to the same era as anything Chen Ming has come into contact with so far. It's okay for Chen Ming to stay away from it now. He will always have time and ability to study it slowly in the future. And it doesn't mean that it is useless if you don't study the personality core. The function of the personality core itself is also quite valuable. It can be used as the core of the mothership, and of course it can also be used as the central control core for the early development of the mechanical race. This core is the key for the mechanical race to manage this base and start construction around it. Therefore, the value of this thing is actually similar to that of the Queen. The Queen needs to coordinate the expansion of the individual Zerg, and the personality core of the mechanical race needs to coordinate the subordinate individuals of the mechanical race to expand. After all, the Zerg and the mechanical race have the same hive thinking, and the hive thinking needs a main consciousness of the cluster, a queen. Chen Ming now has 2 hive thinking networks connected to his consciousness, the Zerg and the mechanical race. The Zerg now has the queen to coordinate. The mechanical race has to be responsible for everything himself. Especially in the early development of the mechanical race after moving to a nearby planet some time ago, Chen Ming had to handle the construction of new cities by himself, which was quite troublesome. And now with the mechanical race war about to break out, he needs to devote more energy to ensure the safety of these mechanical races. If there is something like the queen of insects, a queen of machinery, many things will be much more convenient. Although this cannot change the probability that Chen Ming's mechanical base may be attacked by the mechanical race. But having someone to help with things is better than always paying attention to these things personally. In addition, when Chen Ming was thinking about the use of the personality core, he suddenly thought of a problem. That is, his psychic power can give the most standard name to anything, even if Chen Ming has never known it. And is there something wrong with the name of this personality core? What is personality? This is one of the concepts related to people. And as a relic of the shining civilization, why do the mechanical race have the concept of people in their core? Chen Ming does not understand, but he can feel it. This question definitely involves the most critical part of the shining civilization. But this is not Chen Ming's research direction, nor is it the scope of his knowledge. To figure out this problem, he has to go to the Shining Civilization Research Institute. But this is not in his plan, and he has no time to study the Shining Civilization. So, he can only temporarily add this matter to the plan and wait for a suitable time to confirm it. After figuring out the purpose of the personality core, Chen Ming decisively threw it to the place where his mechanical race now lives. It is different from the queen worm. The queen worm has its own consciousness, while it is just a program. Although this program is very flexible, it is still just a program and can only do things according to Chen Ming's orders. Of course, in order to call it conveniently, Chen Ming still gave it a name. It was the mechanical queen he just thought of. Let it help him integrate everything of the mechanical race. After the personality core was sent away, Chen Ming also figured out the purpose of his action this time. Then next, Chen Ming turned his attention back to the information of the mechanical race. There was still a cruiser left by Chen Ming still wandering in the galaxy. Although Chen Ming had handed over the command of the small fleet to the Legion, he also withdrew several Alpha Cores. But he certainly couldn't completely ignore the situation in this galaxy. As Cho Bowen said before, there are many things in this galaxy that are of considerable value to the Legion. And these things are of the same value to Chen Ming. After Chen Ming focused his attention on the galaxy of the mechanical race, he immediately confirmed the location of the phase behemoth through the reconnaissance fleet and bypassed it. Although his actions were clearly seen by the reconnaissance fleet with authority from the nearby Legion, no one would say anything. So Chen Ming's fleet bypassed to another area on the planet where the destruction was the most serious. This is probably also the place where the phase behemoth attacked and ravaged the planet in the first place. When the reconnaissance fleet was investigating the planetary environment and moving around the planet before, Chen Ming had seen many ruins of mechanical race buildings in this area. Chen Ming had seen the city of the mechanical race before. He knew the general functions of many mechanical race buildings, so when he saw this ruin, he knew that there must be something he needed here. Although there were some buildings that Chen Ming had not seen before and did not know what they were used for, but the buildings that Chen Ming had not seen in the mechanical race city before him must be relatively rare buildings, and they must have their own special features, so he needed to go and see them. Chen Ming's Stardust class quickly arrived directly above the target location he found. On this Stardust class ship, Chen Ming used his psychic power to create a shuttle and a robot. The shuttle can be made casually, as long as it can help him reach the planet safely. But Chen Ming has carefully considered the style of the robot. Just follow the robot model based on power armor that he used when he was doing things in the headquarters before, and install an additional afterglow core. This should be called a mechanical armor body, which is small and easy to move. In addition, Chen Ming's control of the humanoid mechanical body is more comfortable than other shapes, which is enough to complete what Chen Ming is going to do next. After transferring the main consciousness to this robot, Chen Ming controlled the robot to board the shuttle and rushed straight to the planet below. After suffering some extremely sparse and scattered anti-aircraft fire attacks, Chen Ming's shuttle arrived above the destination. Looking around, there are all metal debris and a large number of mechanical family fragments that have been crushed to pieces. This should be a highly developed mechanical family building area, but now there is only a ruin. But ruins don't matter. As long as it's a mechanical thing, Chen Ming's spiritual power can repair it. Because of this, the place Chen Ming chose is also a place he carefully selected. Here, it is the nanorobot production factory of the mechanical race. The mechanical race has three most critical things: secondary core, core chip, and nanorobot. The basic secondary core and core chip are used to ensure the operation of the mechanical race. Their manufacturing is no longer a problem for Chen Ming. So for Chen Ming now, the key lies in nanorobots. This is the key to ensuring the mechanical race's wartime self-repairability and endurance combatability. At the same time, it can be regarded as one of the most technically valuable equipment in the mechanical race. And it is also a limiting condition for Chen Ming's production speed of the mechanical race. Chen Ming currently has only one nanorobot production facility. It was found in the city of that small independent mechanical race in the past, and has been sent by Chen Ming to his new colony of the mechanical race. The number of nanorobot manufacturing equipment limits the manufacturing speed of the mechanical race with complete functions. If there is only one device, it can only meet the production of a number of mechanical individuals at the city level. If you want more, then either limit the ability of mechanical individuals to reduce their maintenance requirements, or just ignore it and produce robots with poor endurance and maintenance performance. Chen Ming didn't want to choose either. He wanted complete mechanical individuals. So he found this building in space and came here as soon as he had time. His goal was to seize the nanorobot manufacturing equipment here. He wanted to make the robots in his hands more industrialized, so that the efficiency of his mechanical expansion could keep up with the reproduction efficiency of the Zerg. Although this sounds a bit crazy at first, the Queen of the Zerg has long been able to convert the planet into its own nutrition and into a Zerg nest, and is now undergoing a critical evolution. And the mechanical race in Chen Ming's hands only covers the scope of a small-scale human colonial city. The gap is not a little bit. But Chen Ming always felt that the industrialized metal wave could compete with the unlimited proliferation of the Zerg. It's just that the scale has not yet been established, so the efficiency is a bit slow. When the scale is established in the future, we will eventually see results. This requires starting from the most basic equipment and building industrialization step by step. The shuttle landed on the planet of the mechanical race. Chen Ming immediately controlled the mechanical armor to crash the hatch of the shuttle. Immediately, a fierce firepower of the mechanical race was output and enveloped him. This is the situation caused by a small number of mechanical race individuals who were not affected by the attack of the phase beast and found the exact landing position of Chen Ming among the ruins during the landing of the shuttle. Although it is a small number, this small number is compared to the time when the mechanical race city was not destroyed before. A small part of a city is already an unattainable part for an individual. So now, Chen Ming has been surrounded by a large number of mechanical individuals. Countless electromagnetic weapons are constantly hitting the mechanical armor and the shuttle beside it. Although these mechanical weapons are of no use to Chen Ming, they can indeed suppress Chen Ming's next move. And in a very short time, two main ground combat units of the mechanical family, the mechanical centipede, are approaching Chen Ming. One is equipped with a charge cannon, and the other is equipped with a charge machine gun. The moment Chen Ming was discovered, the heavy artillery warhead of the charge cannon was instantly fired and hit the shuttle behind Chen Ming. The devastating explosion and flashing arcs completely enveloped the figure. The shuttle was immediately destroyed. But the figure of the mechanical armor controlled by Chen Ming was still moving at high speed in the arc and smoke. He avoided this sudden and powerful attack. But the other centipede was not a useless person. The charge machine gun immediately followed Chen Ming's footsteps, and countless charge warheads fell on the footprints that Chen Ming had just stepped on. The arcs that exploded after the charge warheads hit the target seemed to leave a lightning trail behind Chen Ming. It looked extremely gorgeous, but also extremely dangerous. However, the ability of the mechanical armor body controlled by Chen Ming was different from that of ordinary power armor. Without the restriction of the internal driver, with the increase of Chen Ming's spiritual power and the maintenance spiritual power to ensure that the internal devices were not damaged at all times, the comprehensive combat power it can exert is more than 5 times that of normal circumstances. Even if Chen Ming was forced into a dead end, there was a jet backpack that could force acceleration and break through the upper limit of the efficiency of moving by relying on ordinary limb structures. The ground firepower of the mechanical race was not enough to pose any threat to him. Today is different from the past. Soon, the round of bullets of the mechanical centipede charge machine gun was fired. Taking advantage of the gap between reloading the charge machine gun and charging the warhead, Chen Ming finally had time to stand on the ground steadily. A large amount of metal liquid overflowed from the feet of the mechanical armor body and covered the entire ruins. All the mechanical individuals nearby, including the two centipedes, were all stained with these metal liquids in just a dozen seconds. Just a moment. Their movements became stiff and they stopped attacking Chen Ming. And inside them, their connection with the honeycomb thinking network of the mechanical family was instantly disconnected and no longer existed. The data on the chip became disordered, and the operation of the secondary core produced a little stiffness. And after this brief moment of chaos, they connected to a new honeycomb network. They became abnormal sub-individuals. They turned to defend Chen Ming from the mechanical family approaching the area that was farther away and not covered by the metal liquid. Of course, this is not that Chen Ming's psychic power can be controlled through non-afterglow derivatives. In fact, this is just a derivative ability he has achieved by using psychic effects. Chen Ming's current psychic power can transfer the afterglow core. This means that all places where Chen Ming's spiritual power is affected can have afterglow cores, and can indirectly become the medium for Chen Ming to control new things. Unlike before, once Chen Ming is not in a place, or there is no afterglow core, and the distance is too far, then Chen Ming can only use various means to send the afterglow core or himself there before he can control it. But now it is different. Chen Ming can transfer the afterglow core to any place where there are things under his control. Then only a simple data line is needed, and a robot equipped with afterglow core can help Chen Ming do many things. Of course, it is easy to say, but it is actually difficult to contact mechanical equipment through data lines. Limited by the environment where there may not be data lines, Chen Ming's own technical ability and the ability to finally control spiritual power were insufficient some time ago. If you really want to use spiritual power to control, you still have to look at the specific situation. If Chen Ming takes the initiative to sneak in, he has the opportunity to slowly do things. But if it is a head-on battle, no mechanical family will give Chen Ming the opportunity to access the data line, unless he has already defeated the mechanical family. Therefore, Chen Ming came up with a more advanced way of using it. That is, in these seemingly ordinary metal liquids, there are data lines with the thickness of only a single molecule. As long as they are covered by metal liquid, the hidden single-molecule data lines will forcefully penetrate into the interior of the mechanical device like a beast that has found its prey and control it. The density of the white cloud steel armor of the mechanical family cannot resist Chen Ming's power at all. As long as Chen Ming is given the opportunity to get close, there will be only one outcome. Use it for him. Of course, there are also restrictions on this method. That is, the metal liquid must be connected to the source, that is, the afterglow core, and the data line must not be broken. Many times, the enemy is not a fool in most cases, and will hide when seeing a large area of metal liquid splashing over. Anyone who knows the function of Chen Ming's metal liquid will often deliberately avoid it, and will not give the metal liquid a chance to contact it. However, there is a solution to this. Chen Ming can make a large area of metal liquid as an open means, and then make a few more single-molecule data lines to ambush in secret. It is too easy to be discovered directly using the data line, and the data line itself is too fragile, but if both are used at the same time, as long as they are not extremely sensitive to psychic fluctuations, can see single-molecule data lines with the naked eye, or can sense data lines, all other mechanical enemies are not to be feared. Chen Ming felt that the mechanical race would most likely not give him the opportunity to get close to them like now. This time, the phase behemoth broke through the mechanical race's defenses in front and completely defeated the mechanical race, so Chen Ming could pick up the leaks later. Otherwise, given the mechanical race's full preparations for the previous raid on his fleet, there must be a lot of defenses waiting for him here. Of course, now it is a situation where Chen Ming can do whatever he wants. Even if the mechanical race wants to send reinforcements, they have to consider the behemoths that are wreaking havoc on the planet. So after Chen Ming's metal liquid was released to control the surrounding mechanical race, this factory area has become Chen Ming's territory. The metal liquid expanded again, gradually bringing the entire factory building into his psychic control range. After repairing the equipment in several nanorobot factories, these important equipment immediately disappeared in the collapsed factory building. Chen Ming sent them all the way to his mechanical tribe's base. Some of the nearby manufacturing plant facilities were also related to mechanical tribe manufacturing, and Chen Ming also repaired and packed them up and took them away. He now has the amount of a mechanical tribe city on hand, whether it is the number of mechanical tribes or the number of facilities supporting the mechanical tribe. The mechanical tribe city he controlled before was just a small border base of the shining civilization, not even a sentry post. The number of equipment it has is pitifully small, and many of them are equipment that Chen Ming has found ways to make and replenish. It would definitely be a good thing if it could be replenished here. Chen Ming's psychic energy swept out again, directly clearing the surrounding area completely, leaving only the ruins of useless building materials. After confirming that there was nothing nearby, Chen Ming looked at a slightly farther place. If these facilities here are one of the reasons why Chen Ming chose this place as the landing site, then another reason is that the nearby area is an area that was rebuilt at the fastest speed after the ravages of the phase behemoth. There are many mechanized psychic creatures that are still alive, as well as dead individuals. Chen Ming can obtain a considerable number of mechanized psychic creature samples. Although the Legion will most likely obtain a considerable number of samples when it comes here, a considerable portion will definitely be given to him in the end. After all, he is now the person who has gone the furthest in the research of the mechanical race. But if he has to wait until the Legion gets it, he doesn't know how long it will take. It is better for him to come here in person and find a way to take some away. Chen Ming is very curious whether this mechanized psychic creature is manufactured or transformed from a biological creature into a mechanical race by some device. As long as he can figure out the principle, maybe he can replicate it. If he can replicate a new mechanized Zerg, even if this effect can be applied to humans, Chen Ming suddenly dared not imagine what would happen. He slightly restrained his divergent thoughts. Chen Ming controlled the mechanical armor body to approach the place where the mechanized psychic creatures gathered. He could see from space, just now, that these mechanized psychic creatures seemed to be protecting a facility. Originally, Chen Ming speculated that it was a factory used by the mechanical race to manufacture or transform mechanical psychic creatures. But when Chen Ming came here, he observed from a low angle. Something seemed wrong. This place didn't look like a factory, but rather a machine room, or rather a control center. Although it was half collapsed, a large number of mechanical individuals were desperately repairing the building. A large number of mechanical individuals, no matter what type of individuals, as long as they had some combat ability, all gathered nearby, protecting the building. A considerable number of mechanical individuals had already begun to think about Chen Ming approaching. But with Chen Ming's advanced preparation, the metal liquid had already penetrated from underground. When the mechanical family approached, large groups of mechanical families immediately turned against them and turned their guns to their own people from the previous second. Those mechanical families near the building didn't even have time to respond, and countless single-molecule data lines invisible to the naked eye had already spread out from underground, completely controlling the situation. Chen Ming immediately looked at the panels of those mechanical psychic creatures through the panel. Overall, it was similar to the panels of ordinary mechanical families. The first line is the name Psychic Mechanical Creature, followed by the name of the prototype of this mechanical psychic creature. The rest are basically the same. Only the most critical line Mechanical Spiritual Nerve is significantly different from the ordinary mechanical race. It can only be said that mechanical psychic creatures are very special. Because normal psychic creatures do not have spiritual nerves, this mechanical spiritual nerve is definitely worth studying. However, Chen Ming did not rush to study these psychic mechanical creatures immediately. Since these things have been controlled by him, they will be his sooner or later. Now, he wants to take a closer look at the building in front of him. The metal liquid swept up again, completely covering the entire building. Then, Chen Ming unexpectedly discovered that this building was not the factory for the mechanical race to manufacture or transform mechanical psychic creatures as he had previously guessed. It is actually the central node of the mechanical race, the core of this mechanical colony. From space, 80% of the planet's area has become the coverage of the mechanical race. Among them, it can be divided into 3 large colonies and some scattered small colonies. This is the core of a large colony, the largest one. It can only be said that many mechanical race buildings are of the same height. Chen Ming can only recognize the factory after repeatedly observing the details of the mechanical race buildings. Other buildings may not be recognized correctly. And this building is indeed a building that Chen Ming has never seen. Fortunately, the impact of the mistake is not great. Chen Ming still successfully controlled the entire building and found an empty slot in the core area of the building where the mechanical queen should have been installed. And in this central node database, a complete plan for the construction of the mechanical race colony. The mechanical race has already planned the next development route. These plans and routes are all displayed in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming noticed that in addition to asking the mechanical race to develop to the neighboring galaxies, there was also an inexplicable planned route in this development plan, which extended straight from this galaxy to dozens of galaxies. The lieutenant general had no foothold, as if he was going to directly develop such an enclave. What does this mean? Chen Ming continued to search in the database, and soon he found the reason why the mechanical race did this. Because in that galaxy, there was an undeveloped coordinate of the remains of the shining civilization. Chen Ming was a little surprised to learn this result, because his fleet did find some remains when exploring nearby galaxies. But those and basically have been annihilated by time, the kind that Chen Ming's psychic power can't save. Unexpectedly, there are still remains that he hasn't found. However, when Chen Ming's fleet was investigating, it was impossible to scan all the planets, or even the deep underground of the planets, so it was normal to miss some. Chen Ming guessed that the remains should be deep underground and just escape the scan. That's normal. Although the mechanical race is a relic of the Shining Civilization, they have indeed lost a lot of the Shining Civilization's technology. So they do need to develop the ruins of the Shining Civilization. Only in this way can they retrieve some of the lost things. This is normal. The mechanical race should want to gain a foothold here before developing the ruins and building a new development base on the basis of the ruins. Chen Ming just doesn't understand why the mechanical race doesn't go there directly. But since the mechanical race did this, they must have their reasons. There may be troubles there that require the mechanical race to develop for a period of time to deal with. Of course, they don't have to deal with it now. After being attacked by the phase behemoth, the mechanical race's power in this area has been reduced to a low point. So Chen Ming will help them solve the ruins. After collecting all the information, Chen Ming also decisively transferred the entire database and everything he obtained, and immediately built a new shuttle and took off. The database contains the mechanical race's development plan and of course the construction plan of the entire mechanical race colony. So Chen Ming has now figured out the construction rules of the entire mechanical race colony. His shuttle flew in the direction of the mechanical race's building for manufacturing mechanical psychic creatures. The shuttle was slightly closer to the location where the phase monster was rampaging, which the reconnaissance fleet was really paying attention to. Chen Ming also heard the call that seemed to come from the deep sea again, just like before. But Chen Ming had no way to respond. He could only record this audio that only he could hear and save it for later to figure out the reason. After bypassing the location where the phase behemoth was wreaking havoc, Chen Ming quickly found the coordinates of the facility used by the mechanical race to manufacture mechanical psychic creatures, which he found in the database. From a distance, Chen Ming had already seen a lot of mechanical psychic creatures surrounding the facility. He didn't know where the mechanical race got so many mechanical psychic creatures. These mechanical psychic creatures, together with some other ordinary mechanical races, were destroying the facilities for manufacturing mechanical psychic creatures. They were even directly using various psychic powers to destroy. The meaning of such behavior was very clear. Things that the mechanical race could not protect or take away must not fall into Chen Ming's hands. Chen Ming did not dare to delay any longer. The shuttle did not slow down at all, and directly hit and landed hard in front of the mechanical biological manufacturing facility. Like a flood, the metal liquid rushed to the facility in front without reservation, covering the facility and everything around it. Chen Ming's psychic power was activated, and the single-molecule data line immediately controlled the mechanical race and buildings here, preventing the mechanical race from self-destructing. However, Chen Ming's actions were still a little slow. Before the shuttle approached, a large part of the facilities had been destroyed by the mechanical race. Fortunately, Chen Ming still had psychic energy. After the metal liquid tide used for control receded, Chen Ming activated the repair psychic energy and tried to repair the mechanical psychic energy biological conversion facilities of the mechanical race. However, he found something wrong just after the repair began. His psychic energy repair progress could not continue after reaching 1/3. His psychic energy, which should have completely repaired the entire facility, automatically stopped. Even if Chen Ming wanted to stimulate psychic energy again, the psychic energy could not take effect. It was as if the facility in front of him had been completely repaired and could not be repaired further. But in front of Chen Ming, it was standing in a ruin, with only half of the external building and about 1/3 of the internal devices left. The internal device also retained only a cabin closer to the center and some nearby equipment, and most of the external equipment was still in a damaged state. There was even a huge gap on the top side of the cabin, and it didn't look like it had been repaired at all. There was obviously so much damage, but Chen Ming's psychic power just couldn't work, and there was no way to repair the remaining damage in any form. Under normal circumstances, as long as there was a little bit of the damaged things that Chen Ming could collect, even if it was just a little dust, Chen Ming could repair the dust to its original appearance. But now this one was only about 2/3 destroyed, and there was still 1/3 of it, but he couldn't repair it. Why is this? Chen Ming didn't understand, so he could only mobilize his mental power to conduct a deep exploration of the damaged buildings and facilities. As soon as his mental power touched the buildings and facilities, he immediately found the problem. His mental power was counterattacked by a special energy fluctuation that remained in the place where the facilities and buildings were destroyed. This was the first time Chen Ming saw such an aggressive psychic fluctuation, and even just the remaining point could cause harm to people. Although it didn't cause any substantial damage to Chen Ming, it did wipe out a part of Chen Ming's psychic power. It was this psychic fluctuation that prevented his psychic fluctuation from continuing to expand. And this special psychic fluctuation, Chen Ming immediately checked the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race that he had just controlled. As expected, he found a mechanical psychic creature with such psychic power among them. The effect can be simply described in 2 words: destruction. Chen Ming immediately used his mental power to flush the entire building and cleaned up all the residual psychic fluctuations. But then he found again that his psychic power still could not continue to work. This was not because his psychic power was erased again, but that this building and the equipment inside the building were within the scope of his psychic power and had reached the level of repair completion. Chen Ming was a little confused for a moment, but after realizing the nature of the destructive psychic power, he understood. It can only be said that after seeing many psychics and creatures infected by various dimensions, he thought that he would not find any psychic power strange again. But this time, he still had a feeling that I had never seen this thing before. Because the things erased and destroyed by the destructive psychic power have lost their traces of existence in the concept of psychic power. It has destroyed the foundation of reality. His psychic power cannot locate the node in time where the destroyed things are located. He cannot repair it to that moment, and of course he cannot repair it. This is a destructive psychic fluctuation that erases the foundation of reality. It's a bit scary, Chen Ming muttered subconsciously, because the existence of this thing is more deadly to any recovery-type psychic and any ordinary person. After this psychic fluctuation can no longer destroy buildings and facilities, it will remain on the things affected by the destructive psychic wave. Any creature with individual consciousness, such as humans, will be attacked by destruction. This is the first time Chen Ming has seen such a purely offensive psychic power, and it is in the hands of the mechanical race. If the type of the new Ridge Peak cannon on the mechanical race's mothership is this, then it's probably a bit fatal. Chen Ming immediately took out the mechanical psychic creature that he had controlled and planned to take it directly to the research area on the highest point to determine whether to tell the Legion about the news of the destruction of psychic energy through his research. However, when Chen Ming took this thing out, he suddenly found that it looked strange. This mechanical psychic creature was in the shape of an animal, with a large number of mechanical bristles on its neck. The face had multiple visual sensors, that is, the eyes were randomly distributed on the entire head. If you don't look carefully, there is nothing wrong at first glance. But as long as you observe carefully, the location of these visual sensors alone is strange enough. And Chen Ming didn't notice another strange thing about it when he just controlled it in batches. That was what he thought was bristles before. He thought it was just some decorations formed after the psychic creature was mechanized. But in fact, these things are not bristles at all, but some tentacle-like tissues transformed. Excessive proliferation of organisms will be accompanied by a large amount of useless muscle tissue. And the most common form of useless muscle tissue that Chen Ming saw was various tentacles. This basically proves that there must be something wrong with this mechanical psychic creature. Chen Ming has fed the queen worm a huge amount of various creatures so far, and he has never seen any creature with tentacles growing on its neck and irregularly arranged eyeballs. This mutation in flesh and blood must be related to psychic power or the scarlet dimension. It can't be that the entity created by the dimensional infection was stuffed into the equipment for transformation. It seems possible. This idea suddenly popped up in Chen Ming's mind. After all, the psychic power of this mechanical psychic creature is destruction, exuding a completely destructive aura. This destructive psychic power is reasonable if it is placed on a human or an entity affected by the dimensional infection. But animals? The instinct of any animal is survival. Only humans have emotions that exceed rationality or have mental problems and self-destructive tendencies, and only then will destruction appear. Is it that the dimensional infection has produced an individual with destructive psychic power and was transformed by the mechanical race? Or is it that a certain creature was transformed into a mechanical creature and finally installed with a mechanical psychic nerve with destructive psychic power? Chen Ming even had some doubts that the mechanical race was also conducting cloning experiments and had created this kind of abstract creature, which was transformed into a mechanical individual. However, these were just guesses, and he had to invest more energy in research to confirm what was going on. Not yet. After sending away this mechanical psychic creature that destroyed psychic energy, Chen Ming finally looked at the building that was only 1/3 repaired and the equipment inside, shook his head regretfully, and prepared to send this away as well. But just before Chen Ming sent the equipment away, he suddenly found that the part of the facility he had repaired seemed to have triggered some kind of self-starting system and suddenly started to operate. Chen Ming watched the facility complete the startup self-check and reset it to the time when it could start normally at any time. He even opened a small hatch at the bottom of the cabin with a huge gap that seemed to be able to stuff some creatures in. Although he seemed to have repaired the building's reserve energy supply system when he repaired the building, repairing the energy supply system does not mean that the others have been repaired. Why can the main facilities still operate after only 1/3 of them have been repaired? Just like an animal can survive without 2/3 of its limbs, is this? Chen Ming hesitated for a moment, but still did not choose to try to insert something into the experiment. Because he had just used psychic power to control the entire facility and the entire device, he had been analyzing the technology inside the device and the principle of technology implementation. However, based on what he saw in the past 2 minutes, the technical level of this facility, like many facilities that also belong to the Shining Civilization, has exceeded the technical level he currently has. At most, he can see from the remaining experimental logs in the device that this device uses the nanorobot technology of the mechanical family. And it is a technology that uses nanorobots to replace the body tissues of organisms. Nothing else is known. He does not know the operating principle nor the function of these structures. He only knows that if this device can still operate with 2/3 of the device missing, it will definitely not achieve the same good results as starting the device normally. God knows what the devices that were dismantled by the mechanical family are for, and what will happen if this device is used under the premise of losing those devices. Chen Ming does not want to do something dangerous when there is a way out. although only one-third of the facilities were obtained here. But there is not only one colony on the entire planet, and there may be such mechanical psychic biotransformation equipment in the other two colonies. I just don't know whether there are facilities on those two sides, and whether the facilities can be preserved in the ravages of the phase beasts. Since Chen Ming has already obtained one-third of the facilities and can use them at any time. So before using this equipment, he must first check whether there are the same facilities on the other two sides. At this time, one of the other two large colonies is being ravaged by the phase beasts. After losing the warship that could fire phase lasers, the mechanical race did not continue to use phase weapons to fight back against the phase beast. The mechanical race seemed to have no countermeasures and had no ability to stop it. However, since the combat power of the phase beast itself mainly comes from the melee ability of the body, and although its strong physical fitness allows it to crush the mechanical race's base with exaggerated efficiency, the overall destruction is not thorough. Just like the colony where Chen Ming is now, it is the first colony destroyed after the arrival of the phase beast. There are still a large number of buildings that still have some wreckage that has not been completely destroyed. So there is indeed a possibility that there are still mechanical psychic biological production facilities of the mechanical race in the area over there. Of course, now it is better for Chen Ming to go to another colony that has not been regarded as the second target by the phase beast. Chen Ming does not want to transfer the hatred of the phase beast to himself, and it is much easier to find it in a complete colony than in a ruin. Without much hesitation, Chen Ming's shuttle rushed to the last large colony that has not been affected by the phase beast at a low altitude. Although this colony seems to have not been destroyed by the phase behemoth for the time being, and the phase behemoth has not come to take care of it for the time being. But in fact, as long as any mechanical spaceship dares to fly into the air for more than a certain distance, the phase behemoth in the nearby colony will instantly sense that the mechanical spaceship is about to leave the planet. It will immediately put down its work and come to destroy the mechanical fleet that has taken off. The instantaneous destructive power of the phase behemoth is not great because it relies on physical impact to attack. But the speed of the phase behemoth is very terrifying, and it has also mastered the ability to make short-distance jumps. As long as the spaceship is targeted by it, it will not be able to escape no matter what. Even Chen Ming's shuttle dares to fly at low altitude. Unless all the spaceships of the entire planet of the mechanical race take off at the same time, it is possible that some of the spaceships can escape the pursuit of the phase behemoth. But this was possible before. Now, the phase behemoth has destroyed a colony and has been wreaking havoc in the second colony for a while, and has razed most of the area to the ground. With only the third colony still having spaceships, the mechanical race has no way of escaping the pursuit of the phase behemoth. As for the mechanical race, they still have to face Chen Ming's fleet in the galaxy, which has gone to nowhere. They have lost air superiority and space control because of the phase behemoth, and have no idea where Chen Ming's fleet is gone. With Chen Ming's fleet still staring at them, even if the mechanical colony here looks intact, they seem to have given up escaping and are waiting to die. But Chen Ming doesn't believe that the mechanical race will wait to die. They must be preparing some means. Chen Ming must be prepared to prevent the mechanical race from using the means they intend to use on the phase behemoth on him. Or the mechanical race speculates that he may go there and prepares means to deal with him in advance. Of course, no matter which one it is, it will not affect Chen Ming's next move. He must go to the third colony to try to seize things that belong to the mechanical race. The shuttle arrived above the third colony in a blink of an eye, with the high speed amplified by Chen Ming's psychic energy. This time, Chen Ming is also familiar with the mechanical race's combat style in their own colonies. Know what to do is the most efficient. Therefore, when the shuttle enters the range of the colony, the two sides of the shuttle suddenly splashed a large amount of metal liquid to the outside world, and he started to use the metal liquid to cover a large area directly from the air. It doesn't matter if these metal liquids can't connect to the afterglow core inside the robot he controls, as long as the metal liquid covers it. As long as the mechanical race can't clean up the metal liquid, then when Chen Ming releases enough metal liquid and activates the psychic energy, that's the moment when the mechanical race ends. Of course, releasing metal liquid on a large scale will definitely have problems. For example, The mechanical race's control center will definitely be protected most strictly by the mechanical race. Even at the necessary moment, in order not to be controlled by Chen Ming, it is absolutely possible to find a way to destroy it by yourself, just like just now. So Chen Ming has already graded each place in the colony in his mind and divided the priorities of control. While releasing a large amount of metal liquid, his shuttle is also approaching the important place he has divided, the control center of the colony, at a very fast speed. It's a pity that Chen Ming didn't see the mechanical psychic energy biological conversion device of the mechanical race here, but only saw some mechanical psychic energy creatures nearby. However, he unexpectedly saw another mechanical psychic creature emitting destructive psychic fluctuations, which had the same destructive psychic fluctuations as the previous mechanical psychic creature. And this time, this mechanical psychic creature directly attacked him. The attack method cannot be observed by the naked eye. He could only sense through psychic power that a destructive psychic fluctuation was about to act on the robot he controlled, and it could directly destroy the robot's body at the moment of activation. This situation made Chen Ming frown subconsciously. It was not because of this attack, but because, as far as he knew, all psychics and psychic creatures may have psychic powers with similar effects, but they only look similar. The abilities and effects that can be achieved by each person's psychic power are absolutely different. For example, of the two psychics who make fire, one can control plasma-like things like fire, and the other can use entropy to make fire like Hu-E. The essence is different. But in front of Chen Ming, two mechanical psychic creatures with completely identical psychic fluctuations appeared. This is not right. He couldn't say whether the mechanical race successfully reproduced something like the purgatory core, or whether they really used dimensional infection to transform multiple dimensional infected entities to make these things. After all, the entities that appeared due to dimensional infection basically have similar properties, and it shouldn't be a problem to create multiple mechanical psychic creatures. But Chen Ming couldn't say it either. Anyway, he caught this mechanical psychic creature first, and then he had plenty of time to study it slowly. Chen Ming didn't care about the destructive psychic fluctuations that were about to act on his robot. The effect of psychic power always depends on the psychic user himself. And the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race are not as good as those psychics who can compete with him that Chen Ming has seen in using psychic power, even if the destructive psychic energy has locked onto him. But when Chen Ming's psychic energy fluctuations swept out from the robot he controlled, the locked psychic energy fluctuations were instantly wiped out. As long as there is no opportunity for destruction to be triggered, the destructive psychic energy is meaningless. And Chen Ming's shuttle crashed into the control center of this colony again. The reaction of the mechanical race can be said to be quite fast. Before Chen Ming's shuttle crashed again. Even when Chen Ming's shuttle just appeared in the detection range of this colony, the mechanical race here had already begun to self-destruct. The mechanical race knew that they had no ability to resist if Chen Ming approached them, so they attacked Chen Ming if they could, and killed each other if they could not attack, constantly destroying their own individuals, of course, including the control center. They would rather destroy themselves than leave anything for Chen Ming. However, in the flames of the shuttle crash and explosion, Chen Ming's robot jumped out of it. After the metal liquid created by psychic energy and the psychic energy fluctuations were used to hedge against the mechanical psychic creature's use of destructive psychic energy again, the metal liquid gushed out as if it was triggered by explosives, forming an area like an iron curtain around Chen Ming, and all the metal liquids were connected to each other at this moment. Chen Ming's psychic energy was activated again, and countless single-molecule data lines became a network covering the colonies of the mechanical race. The colonies in the area covered by the shuttle splashed with metal liquid all the way fell into Chen Ming's hands. And this range is still expanding rapidly. Chen Ming was able to repair and transform an entire human colony at the beginning, so it makes sense that he can't do it in the face of the colonies of the mechanical race now. And the colony he controls now is more complete than the colony that was destroyed by the phase behemoth just now, and does not require a lot of materials and mental power to repair. So he simply expanded the area covered by the metal liquid to the size of the entire colony. During the whole process, the mechanical race did not make any effective countermeasures, so the destructive psychic energy was a little threatening, but it was meaningless. It seems that most of the defense means belonging to the mechanical race were lost in the conflict between them and the phase behemoth just now. Chen Ming was worried that the mechanical race had some backup, but he was just scaring himself. There is nothing to worry about. There are not so many in the world. Chen Ming stopped talking halfway in his mind. After all, he was good at making bad moves, and even if he just thought about it, the mechanical race might be able to come up with a backup. But fortunately, Chen Ming stopped thinking in time, and the mechanical race still had no backup hidden energy under the successive attacks of the phase behemoth and Chen Ming. Only the entire colony controlled by Chen Ming was left. Although many buildings or mechanical race individuals in the colony were demolished by the mechanical race's infighting. But these demolished things were not demolished by the destructive psychic energy, and Chen Ming could still repair them, and sent this destructive mechanical psychic creature to the highest point. Only part of the control center in front of Chen Ming was destroyed by the destructive psychic energy. But the technology of the mechanical race's control center has not yet reached the level that Chen Ming cannot understand, and he can directly build a new one to fill it. Destruction only destroys the past of something, but it cannot be repaired. New ones can still be built. As the colony was completely occupied by Chen Ming's mental power began to be consumed in large quantities, and his psychic energy acted on the entire colony. He wanted to take away everything that could be transported before the phase beast came to destroy it. An entire complete mechanical colony disappeared from the spot in just a few seconds and was moved to the planet where Chen Ming's mechanical race was originally stationed. Although the planet where Chen Ming's own mechanical race was located and the mechanical race's colony planet could not completely match in terms of terrain, the location of the mechanical colony itself was a plain, and Chen Ming also chose a plain, so there would not be too many problems. At most, there would be some collapsed buildings, and Chen Ming could just repair them with psychic energy. If it really doesn't work, Chen Ming still has a mechanical personality core, mechanical queen, on hand. Although it has no independent consciousness, it has the ability to manage and plan the mechanical colony. With Chen Ming's psychic power, it is not a problem to manage the entire colony. It can only be said that Chen Ming had been thinking about how to make his own mechanical race develop faster. However, if he wants to develop faster on the basis of a weak foundation, then the best way he can think of is to rob. The planet of the mechanical race is used for development. It not only stores a lot of development materials, but also has a large number of mechanical buildings for development and buildings for manufacturing mechanical individuals. It is exactly the same as Chen Ming's needs. Although compared with the overall colony of the entire planet, Chen Ming only robbed 1/3, but for Chen Ming now, this 1/3 is enough. The only regret is that there is no mechanical psychic biological transformation facility of the mechanical race in the colony where Chen Ming moved. I don't know if there is a place that was just ravaged by the phase behemoth. Chen Ming just had a greedy idea. He suddenly found that the phase behemoth that was supposed to be ravaging the second mechanical colony was gone. And suddenly, beside his ears, there was a sound that was getting closer and closer, as if it came from the deep sea. That is, Chen Ming thought it should be the sound of the phase beast. The sound was getting closer and closer, and the emotion in the sound that people could experience personally became clearer and clearer. An emotion that was a mixture of vigilance, desire, curiosity, anger, fear, and more complex emotions. If there were only the first three emotions, Chen Ming might still think that the phase beast should be able to live in peace. But with the latter, it would be hard for Chen Ming to say. However, at this time, Chen Ming's robot had completed its work. After sending the afterglow core away, Chen Ming controlled the robot to wait in place, waiting to see what the phase beast would do. Chen Ming listened to the gradually deafening sound in his ears, as if there was really a giant beast with a body length of more than 1,000 meters roaring, and waited silently. However, just a few seconds later, when the sound stopped getting louder, Chen Ming's robot was suddenly smashed by the phase beast that could not be observed but did exist in the phase space. What's the meaning? Chen Ming was stunned. He didn't see clearly what just happened. However, his psychic ability still allowed him to sense what had just happened. To put it simply, the phase beast did not slow down when it approached Chen Ming's robot, and then directly smashed his robot into pieces. and through the material that Chen Ming could control that was left at the scene at this time. Chen Ming could still hear the cry in the deep sea full of question marks. It seemed to be wondering why the thing that had just attracted it had dissipated. It didn't seem to notice Chen Ming's robot. It's like a person was attracted by the sound of ants, but didn't notice the presence of the ants when he walked towards them, and simply trampled the ants to death. Chen Ming's hypothesis may be that he was too far away to hear the specific source of the sound, and the phase beast in front of Chen Ming at this moment should be that he could not clearly perceive the position of Chen Ming's robot through the phase space. Or maybe it's because the phase beast is actually interested in Chen Ming himself, and Chen Ming's true self is not here, so the phase beast cannot sense it clearly. This is probably the case. In short, Chen Ming still had some difficulty in creating a new robot at a nearby location. After hearing the phase beast's voice through this robot, the phase beast seemed to sense the existence of his robot again and flew towards Chen Ming's new robot. However, the result can be said to be exactly the same as before. The phase beast still didn't notice Chen Ming's robot and crashed it directly without slowing down. Chen Ming was a little unconvinced and wanted to build a robot directly on the phase beast. However, although the space where the phase beast is located seems to be empty, the phase beast itself exists there, and Chen Ming's robot cannot create it. Moreover, there seemed to be some kind of special position around the phase beast's body, and Chen Ming's psychic energy could not act on it. He could only keep a distance of about tens of meters to create a new robot. Chen Ming thought for a moment and chose to create it in the air above the phase beast's head. Once built, the robot will land on the back of the phase beast, roughly where it is on its back. However, just after Chen Ming's robot heard the voice of the phase beast again, and the phase beast sensed Chen Ming again, it didn't know whether it felt a foreign object on its back or something. It subconsciously turned over and flopped around on the ground, crushing the robot into pieces again. Listening to the confused voice of the phase beast once again losing its complete and clear perception of Chen Ming, Chen Ming fell silent. He could tell from the phase beast's voice that it was not absolutely aggressive, and that anger and fear were not directed at him. But they can't communicate or have contact at this time. There is absolutely no way to stop the phase beast from continuing to act foolishly. Otherwise, let's give up here for now. Chen Ming felt that he had to see if there was a chance to get a phase ship from the Ship Research Institute quickly and try to use the phase ship to enter the phase space to contact the phase beast. If they were all in phase space, the phase beast might be able to clearly sense the position of his robot. While the phase beast was still confused, Chen Ming quickly sped up his movements and drove the shuttle to the second mechanical colony where the beast had just left. The mechanical armed forces here have been almost completely destroyed, and Chen Ming can easily control the entire colony. And here, Chen Ming also found a new psychic mechanical creature that destroyed psychic energy. It looks a little different from the second and third ones. Chen Ming chose to send this destructive mechanical psychic creature away as well, and then conduct unified research on it. Soon, most of the colony was in ruins. Chen Ming once again found the control center of the colony. After borrowing some equipment from the mechanical tribe, Chen Ming was somewhat regretful that he could not find another mechanical psychic biological transformation facility. There is only one facility in the 3 colonies on the entire planet, and this facility has been damaged a lot. Chen Ming had a headache. He had originally thought that the other 2 colonies would also have this facility. If not, then we really have to conduct experiments with only 1/3 of the facilities that are still operational. Chen Ming was still somewhat reluctant to conduct a final search using metallic liquid scattered in the only 2 colonies on the planet. The result, of course, was nothing. It's better to withdraw then. Before leaving, Chen Ming finally confirmed the location of the phase beast. I found that it went back to doing its own thing after being confused just now. After turning around and ravaging the ruins of the second colony, it headed to the location of the third colony. However, Chen Ming has used psychic energy to take away the intact third colony and all the mechanical individuals on it. Therefore, judging from the position of the sound at this time, the phase beast is most likely hovering over the original third colony. Listening to the voice, it seemed that he was beginning to be confused again. However, after carefully observing the original site where the third colony was moved, there seemed to be a hint of excitement in its voice. Chen Ming is not sure, but it should be this emotion. Chen Ming finally tried to build a robot to contact the phase beast, but unfortunately the result was the same. The phase beast excitedly walked over to Chen Ming's robot, then crushed the robot into pieces, falling into a confused reincarnation once again. So be it. Chen Ming left some metallic liquid on the planet and buried some body tissue of the queen of insects deep underground. He also controlled the stardust level outside the orbit and visited all the planets in the galaxy, leaving a little bit behind. He then dismantled the stardust and completely handed over the galaxy to the Legion. At the same time, he also plans to return his main consciousness to his body. He still has many things to study next. However, Chen Ming did not have time to do so. His prosthesis at the Legion headquarters suddenly received a call. It's called from Bai Quan. The prosthesis of the headquarters is still leaving the headquarters on the shuttle boat. There happened to be nothing wrong, so Chen Ming picked up the phone. Bai Quan's voice sounded, "Isn't that a little too much?" Chen Ming immediately realized that Bai Quan was probably referring to the fact that he had just ran back and forth twice about the information about the machine tribe and took away a colony. He responded somewhat innocently, "I feel okay. The main reason is that it would take too long for the Legion to come over. The phase monster has already demolished the colony several times. It's better if I keep some of it now than to demolish it, right? You can tell me if the Legion needs anything, right? As for what the Legion needs when the time comes, whether Chen Ming has it on hand is another matter." "Okay. Anyway, we have to wait 3 days. Let's see if we can do something when the Legion fleet arrives in 3 days. Bai Quan just came over to ask, and it was indeed as Chen Ming said. Before the Legion's fleet arrived, what happened in the galaxy basically had nothing to do with the Legion. Only after the fleet arrives will the Legion be qualified to make decisions. Communication ended. Chen Ming glanced at the autonomous driving system of the shuttle boat. The destination was fine. It was at the Ship Research Institute. Before the shuttle boat arrived, Chen Ming continued to switch his main consciousness to his body. His body now has 2 things to do. One is an experiment on mechanical psychic biological transformation equipment. One is to study clearly the situation of the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race, especially the mechanical psychic creatures that destroy psychic powers. How do these mechanical psychic creatures use their psychic powers? Why do they have spiritual enlightenment nerves in their bodies that should not appear in biological bodies? These 2 things can actually be classified as one thing. So Chen Ming simply conducted research in the order in which the mechanical psychic creatures themselves appeared. That is to say, first figure out what can be produced from the remaining 1/3 of the mechanical, psychic, and biological transformation facilities. Then, based on the results of his own experiments, combined with them, he will study the mechanical psychic creatures themselves. At the highest point of the pioneering base, the research area filled with various research facilities occupies the middle section of the ship at the highest point. Although most of the space is occupied by research equipment, there is still no problem in inserting a new piece of equipment into the corners of the middle section of the spacecraft. Chen Ming had already delivered the things before, and when he came here in person, he looked like he was going to activate the equipment. Chao Fan, who usually has been studying the area, immediately asked him a bunch of questions. It's probably about what this device is and how it works. Of course, Chen Ming didn't know what the long-distance principle of this device was. And since Chao Fan can ask this question, it definitely doesn't know the answer to it. This means that the technology of this thing is really ahead of the technology of Empire and Afterglow by at least 1 era. So Chen Ming didn't give Chao Fan an answer, he just asked him to look at the experiment he was going to do next. The experiment of the mechanical psionic biological transformation facility is, of course, the transformation of psionic creatures. Although it seems that ordinary creatures that are not psychic creatures can also be transformed, but if conditions permit, you must use something good. Each of the Zerg units produced by the Queen can use a certain level of the Queen's psychic powers. Just use bugs to try to transform. Then the next question comes, which Zerg unit is the most suitable? There are many types of Zerg individuals. Parasite eggs as small as spores and as large as Titan bugs, which are more than 30 meters in size and charge at the front lines of the battlefield, are all possible targets. However, Which one to choose depends on the maximum size that the conversion device can fit into. Although only 1/3 of the mechanical psychic biological transformation facility has been demolished, the core position has not been damaged too seriously. It is still about 30 meters high and is in the shape of a hemisphere. The Titan bug might be able to be accommodated if it was squeezed a little, but Chen Ming was not ready to take out the Titan bug for a dangerous experiment. Try to choose a moderate body shape. Chen Ming thought for a while. The final choice was a Zerg individual about 4 meters in size, very similar to an Whooping after he entered the insect state. Of course, this is a pure Zerg individual. There is no technology in Whooping that combines Chen Ming's own spiritual power, the Queen's spiritual power, and the origin of chaos. It also does not incorporate Chen Ming's genes. It is a pure Zerg race. Such an individual's overall quality can be said to be the strongest among the Zerg units, and is a good choice. After filling the hole on the top of the cabin with materials similar to the cabin, Chen Ming stuffed the bug into the open hatch. Just after Chen Ming pressed the start button, the conversion facility suddenly prompted Chen Ming that there was a lack of available materials. Some key materials are provided by the facility, but as the main materials for the mechanical psychic creatures, Chen Ming needs to provide them. If it is related to the mechanical race, Baiyun steel is obviously the most suitable. But Chen Ming chose another material. The psychic Baiyun steel produced by Yin Xiong has a purity of 100%. After Chen Ming filled in the materials, the hatch of the facility was closed, and the bug Chen Ming stuffed in was sent to the center of the cabin. Chen Ming can also use psychic energy to sense everything that this Zerg encountered. After an extremely rigorous scan, the facility suddenly released a large number of nanorobots that looked like iron sand at a glance, covering the Zerg units. According to the results of the scan just now, they slowly transformed every cell and every bit of keratin of the Zerg units into mechanical structures. Although the Zerg do not have pain nerves, they still have a sense of damage. At this time, the Zerg unit in the conversion facility transmitted to Chen Ming through the hive mind network without any sense of pain. The conversion does not cause any pain or damage to the organism. And although Chen Ming used 100% pure psychic white cloud steel as the raw material, it did not seem to have any effect on the process. These nanorobots simply converted biological cell tissues into machines made of psychic white cloud steel. The entire operation process seemed to be normal, as if the loss of those external devices did not affect the basic functions of the conversion device. However, the good times did not last long. The progress of the conversion facility had just converted the part below the calf of the Zerg individual into steel, and the operation of the facility suddenly stalled. Those nanorobots also paused at any time. Then they continued to run. Chen Ming immediately paid 100% attention, because the equipment had obviously failed just now, but it was still running. If the failed equipment continued to run, God knows what consequences would be caused. In the meantime, those nanorobots continued to convert biological cells into machinery. However, unlike just now, not all biological cells were transformed by nanorobots. The transformation process of these nanorobots after the failure was intermittent. The feet and calves that had been transformed were pure machinery, but the thighs became a mixture of biological tissue and metal. The transformation process was running, but it was incomplete. And the incomplete result was like this. While Chen Ming was observing, the transformation facility was still transforming the bodies of the Zerg individuals, allowing its flesh and blood to be further mixed with metal. Moreover, the protection of the transformation parts by these nanorobots during the transformation was also ineffective. Gray-green blood flowed, and the gray-white muscles seemed to be filled with countless sharp blades. The Zerg individual felt that his body was being hurt, and this injury was extremely severe and terrifying. Its body instinctively repaired its injuries and filled the flesh and blood tissue transformed by the nanorobots. However, the tissues it used to repair would also be further damaged by the nanorobots in the transformation facility. The further injuries caused by this further transformation forced the individual Zerg to increase the strength of repair. This vicious cycle caused the entire worm to become swollen. Sure enough, the damaged facility still could not lead to the correct result. The transformation process soon came to the end. The hatch of the facility opened, revealing a half-biological and half-mechanical monster with a body size of 10 meters. A bloated, slow, and seemingly dead monster at any time. But it was at least based on the Zerg gene, and was a Zerg individual created based on the insect form that Chen Ming and the Queen of the Zerg had studied for a long time. It would not die for a while. It even crawled out of the cabin, leaving a large pool of gray-green blood on the ground, and greedily devoured the energy crystal that Chen Ming had prepared in advance. Chen Ming watched silently and recorded silently. Although its transformation process was not completed, it unexpectedly retained the characteristics of both the Zerg and the mechanical clan. It can maintain its own life by devouring any object like the Zerg, and it also has the steel body of the mechanical clan. Moreover, Chen Ming discovered that the steel bodies on its body can be enhanced by the Queen's psychic energy. Even the Queen's psychic energy can affect the nanorobots that every normal mechanical race has after the transformation process is completed. Although the transformation process of the individual Zerg race is only half completed, there are indeed nanorobots in its body to repair the damage to its mechanical parts. These nanorobots can increase their efficiency under the influence of the Queen's psychic energy. What's even more outrageous is that these nanorobots can actually continue to operate like the Zerg, not by electricity, but by eating or directly absorbing nutrients from the bodies of Zerg individuals. There is no barrier between biology, machinery, and psychic energy in it. I don't know if it's the Queen's psychic power, or if it's the Queen's psychic power that becomes like this after being mixed with Chen Ming's psychic power, or if it's the effect of that facility. I can only say that the current situation can be explained in a more scientific way. That is, after the transformation, there are also biological cells of individual Zerg in these mechanical components. If it is explained in a more psychic way, then the psychic power of Chen Ming and the Queen's psychic power is so outrageous. In short, while this Zerg individual that has become a monster can call on the Queen's psychic power, the Queen can still control it. The effect of Chen Ming's psychic power is the same. He can also directly use psychic power to control, repair, and transform this monster, whether it is the mechanical or biological part of it. Even, use deep repair psychic power. Of course, Chen Ming didn't do this. He came to test, not to play with psychic power. He wanted to see the result of a failed experiment and summarize the experience in the failure, rather than a failed result suddenly disappeared, and Chen Ming couldn't learn anything from it. However, although the experiment can be said to have failed, after all, it was indeed a useless monster. But it can also be said to be successful, because Chen Ming can see the possibility of future development from this crippled monster. It perfectly combines the advantages of machinery and biology. It can also obtain gains from both, but it is not very outstanding because of the damage of the facilities. Its value has been reflected. Chen Ming had this idea before, combining machinery and biology, but there has been no suitable opportunity to try and realize it. Unexpectedly, this facility completed the preliminary experiment and verified the feasibility. He also found two inspirations from the failed results in front of him. For example, the Zerg biological building that has not made much progress. Although the larvae hatching pool technology made by the Queen is basically stable, it is not necessary for each larvae to lay eggs in person. But the further research progress of the worker insect breeding room is not ideal, let alone the combat Zerg. Because the Zerg has many types and complex functions, and different numbers are needed at different times, the number of breeding rooms required for an entire Zerg nest is an exaggerated number. So the progress is slow. However, the research progress of the crystal worm breeding room is quite fast. However, Chen Ming has already sold the energy crystal technology to the Legion. After that, he can make money by dividends without any output, and he doesn't need to work. This is very embarrassing. However, Chen Ming's new idea should be able to make up for the other worker insect breeding rooms. Biological buildings are indeed not easy to make, but the difficulty is different if you only talk about cultivating a certain biological building. Chen Ming feels that he can first use machinery to make suitable facilities for cultivating worker insects, and then let the queen insect transform them into biological buildings. Since the queen insect can transform cruisers, a small building should not be a problem. This is what Chen Ming thinks that the queen insect can try. As for another idea that Chen Ming just had in his mind, It is to implant various mechanical devices, such as prostheses, into the Zerg to enhance the combat effectiveness of the Zerg. But he just thought about it and had no intention of executing this idea. Because of the cost, the Zerg itself only needs to eat to reproduce. And installing mechanical equipment and prostheses on these Zergs requires various investments and time. The cost of producing Zergs has increased significantly, and the Zerg has lost some of its advantages. In addition, the Zerg itself is strong enough, and with the Queen's psychic amplification, its strength is not lower than some mechanical structures. But if the Zerg is transformed into a machine, if it is transformed using a mechanical psychic biological conversion device, it may be possible to use psychic energy to affect the mechanical part. But if it is directly implanted into a prosthesis, it is not certain whether the psychic energy can still work. It is not certain whether it can be completely transformed from a biological to a mechanical through facilities. So even if many metals are stronger than the Zerg's carapace, or even stronger than the Queen's enhanced body, Chen Ming will not easily try to implant prostheses into the Zerg. At most, Chen Ming will use these technologies on some elite guard Zerg that the Queen may need, or use them on the Zerg's top biological spacecraft. No matter which one, this technology will definitely not be used for the time being. And we must wait until the Queen wakes up from evolution. In short, continue to cultivate this half-mechanical and half-biological monster for 2 days to see if we can research more new things from it. Chen Ming plans to call this half-mechanical, half-insect creature Sample 0, and all subsequent research can start from it. At the same time, Chen Ming also plans to continue using and testing this damaged psychic biological transformation facility and continue to put more Zergs into it. See if he can cultivate a real mechanical Zerg when the equipment is damaged. However, before the next step of action begins, Chen Ming still has a problem to solve. Why doesn't this half-biological, half-mechanical Sample 0 have a mechanical spiritual awakening nerve, according to what Chen Ming knows? Except for human psychics, no psychic creatures have spiritual awakening nerves. Their spiritual energy source is themselves. It can be said that the body of each psychic creature is their spiritual awakening nerve. Since the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race have mechanical spiritual awakening nerves, there must be a source. Chen Ming previously believed that the mechanical psychic creature transformation facility concentrated all the spiritual energy originally existing in the body of the psychic creature during the transformation of the psychic creature and constructed a new spiritual awakening nerve. But now it seems that things are not as he imagined. Sample number 0 does not have a mechanical spiritual awakening nerve. Although this may be because Chen Ming only obtained 1/3 of the equipment, which lacks the function of transforming spiritual awakening nerves. However, through the study of the entire transformation process, Chen Ming is more inclined to believe that the facility will not aggregate the spiritual energy of psychic creatures to form mechanical spiritual awakening nerves during the transformation. When it transforms the body tissues of the Zerg individuals covered by the power of the Queen, it has no intention of aggregating spiritual energy at all. The equipment itself is not made of silent alloy, a material that can isolate the overflow of psychic energy fluctuations, nor does it seem that psychic energy can be gathered again at the end of the conversion process. The psychic energy in the converted body tissues dissipated during the conversion. Zerg units are all part of the Queen, so they can use the Queen's psychic energy. If psychic energy can really be accumulated, the psychic energy of the Queen should be accumulated. But the facility did not do so. So Chen Ming felt that the mechanical spiritual nerves were not converted from psychic creatures. This equipment should not be a mechanical psychic biological conversion facility, but a mechanical, psychic, biological conversion facility. The key lies in the biological conversion facility. Then the question is, where do these mechanical spiritual nerves come from? Chen Ming felt that this had to be determined by contacting the existing mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race. He immediately went to the warehouse at the highest point, where there were about hundreds of mechanical psychic creatures on standby, and there were 3 special destructions waiting for him. These mechanical psychic creatures are essentially no different from all mechanical units, and even the panels are exactly the same. It's nothing more than a different name and an extra mechanical awakening nerve. So if you want to study these things, You must start with the biggest difference between them and ordinary mechanical races, the mechanical awakening nerve. The mechanical awakening nerve is called the awakening nerve, but in fact it is very different from the ordinary awakening nerve. The biggest difference is the appearance. The awakening nerve of ordinary psychics grows in the brain, and the thickest is only 1/3 of the diameter of the little finger, and the length will not exceed 20 centimeters. And the mechanical awakening nerve? Chen Ming can say with certainty, through his observation of hundreds of mechanical psychic creatures he captured. The mechanical awakening nerve is more like a mechanical spine, and its internal structure is very similar to the purgatory core. Of course, this does not mean that the mechanical awakening nerve is the purgatory core, but it is very similar to the purgatory core in terms of operating logic structure. The more obvious difference is that the purgatory core is the ability to control entropy purely relying on the internal structure and psychic materials. And there are really some special substances inside the mechanical awakening nerve. Chen Ming randomly found a mechanical psychic creature and disassembled its mechanical awakening nerve, and used psychic energy to extract the special substance inside. This is a psychic substance that is invisible to the naked eye, but it can be sensed by mental power, and mental power can be used to block it to prevent it from escaping in the air. And when Chen Ming used mental power to sense this thing, he suddenly felt that this thing was very familiar. He should have. No, it has always been in contact with it. Chen Ming remembered. These psychic substances are all psychic energy substances. And psychic energy substances are the substances that constitute the spiritual stone, the essence of the spiritual stone. In other words, the mechanical spiritual nerve is actually similar to the spiritual stone? And is it made of spiritual stone? Chen Ming feels a little bit different. The spiritual stone is an extreme emotion accompanied by the fluctuation of mental power when a person dies and aggregates on the nearby stone. The spiritual energy substances in the mechanical spiritual nerves are also quite different from those in the spiritual stone. The mechanical spiritual nerves seem to be locked into this kind of spiritual energy substances by something. It is not like the spiritual stone that is naturally formed. Chen Ming didn't want to delve too deeply into how these spiritual energy substances came from, because delving into them might touch upon his blind spots in knowledge again. He only needed to know that it was this substance that gave this mechanical spiritual nerve its specialness and gave the mechanical creature spiritual energy. In addition, Chen Ming also noticed that the structure of the mechanical spiritual nerves installed by different mechanical spiritual creatures was the same, but the spiritual energy substances inside were different. As long as a mechanical spiritual nerve was replaced with a different spiritual energy substance, it could immediately become a mechanical spiritual nerve with other effects. This standardized structure made these mechanical spiritual nerves look like a device that could be mass-produced and belong to the mechanical family. As for more, Chen Ming couldn't analyze it. The overall technical level of the mechanical race is higher than his, so he couldn't go deeper. However, Chen Ming suddenly remembered something. In his hand, there is a personality core that he just snatched from the mechanical race, the mechanical queen. As the core of the mechanical race's mothership and the core of the colony construction during the pioneering period, it should have knowledge about the mechanical race. How come he almost forgot this? Chen Ming immediately contacted the mechanical queen remotely and asked it what the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race were. The mechanical queen responded quickly. But what Chen Ming didn't expect was that the mechanical queen didn't reply to his question, but a complete document, and helped Chen Ming translate it into the language of the empire. And this document actually explained in detail what the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race were and how they were made. Chen Ming looked at the document and was silent. After a long silence, he suddenly sighed and said, "Why didn't I ask directly?" Fortunately, the impact was not great. Chen Ming's own research would also leave a deeper impression than reading the document directly. In addition, he started researching after conducting experiments. These documents will not clearly state the results of all failed experiments, nor will they teach Chen Ming how to create a half-biological, half-mechanical individual and gain the advantages of both. Chen Ming learned something new from the experiment just now, so it is not a loss if he does not ask. After adjusting his mindset, Chen Ming carefully studied the document on the mechanical psychic creatures of the mechanical race. Probably a few years ago, the mechanical race found the mechanical psychic creature transformation facility from the ruins of the Shining Civilization. After a period of searching for the memories stored in themselves, the mechanical race regained the use of this facility. Seeing this, Chen Ming paused for a moment. Because he found that according to the document, the transformation facility does have the ability to transform psychic-related things. However, it does not transform psychic creatures into mechanical psychic creatures, but transforms psychic creatures into a psychic core and produces some related derivatives, that is, psychic energy. This facility extracts all the psychic energy of psychic creatures and fuses them into a special object. If the spiritual nerve extractor is used for psychics, then this transformation facility is used for psychic creatures. Moreover, the transformation facility also has multiple transformation modes. Transforming organisms into mechanical organisms and transforming psychic organisms into psychic cores are only two of the most basic functions. The other transformation methods are unusable only because Chen Ming's machine lost too many external devices. As for other transformation methods, Chen Ming continued to read on. After the mechanical race found and figured out how to use the transformation facility, it didn't take long for them to create a dimension infection entity. Of course, it was not the mechanical race star field near the Empire, but a mechanical race star field somewhere in the more distant and deep starry sky. So it didn't affect the Empire at all. In short, the ability of the dimension infection entity created by the mechanical race is destruction. And the mechanical race felt that it was too dangerous, so they used the converter to transform this dimension infection entity into a destruction core and some companion creatures, that is, the psychic energy of destruction. These psychic energy substances can't be wasted, so the mechanical race created a new, no, it should be considered old, a kind of thing that belongs to the Shining Civilization and the mechanical psychic biological transformation facility, that is, the mechanical spiritual nerve. As long as a little spiritual energy is inserted, the mechanical race can create a new mechanical spiritual nerve. After these are implanted in some creatures, and these creatures are transformed again by the transformation facilities and become mechanical creatures. These creatures can master the power of using spiritual energy through the transformation of the facilities. Implanting mechanical spiritual nerves and transforming ordinary creatures is similar to installing and debugging the Purgatory Core for the Purgatory Demon King. As for why the mechanical spiritual nerves are not directly given to other mechanical races, there is also an explanation in the document. The technical strength of the mechanical spiritual nerve itself is not as good as the Purgatory Core. So although it is a machine, it needs to be assimilated with the object of implantation. Ordinary mechanical races cannot assimilate spiritual energy, only creatures can assimilate with spiritual nerves. And after assimilation, the mechanical race can further transform the creatures. This is the reason why mechanical psychic creatures appear. Chen Ming said, where did the mechanical race get so many psychic creatures to transform? It is basically a psychic creature that can transform a core and spiritual energy that can replicate multiple mechanical spiritual nerves. This method of mass-producing multiple spiritual awakening nerves using companion organisms only uses relatively simple devices such as mechanical spiritual awakening nerves, so the upper limit of spiritual energy is much lower than that of normal psychics. As for the purpose of the spiritual energy core, the document does not say much, but simply describes it in one sentence. The spiritual energy core is an alternative combination of spiritual awakening nerves and spiritual stones. In short, after obtaining this information, some questions that Chen Ming could not answer in his mind were finally answered. Let's not talk about how the machine race caused the dimensional infection, but also how they stuffed the entity from the most important source of the dimensional infection into the transformation equipment. In short, the mechanical race created the core of destruction and some derived spiritual energy of destruction by transforming the entities infected by the dimension. Then these destructive spiritual energy qualities became the content of part of the mechanical spiritual enlightenment nerves. And these soul-destroying nerves carry a part of the power of dimensional infection. After being implanted into the bodies of ordinary creatures, they will of course cause those creatures to be infected. This process of infection is probably also a process of assimilation from the perspective of the machine race. After the assimilation was completed, these dimension-infected creatures were sent to the mechanical psychic biological transformation facility and became what Chen Ming saw. Fortunately, after the second transformation, the remaining spiritual energy quality of destruction is really pure spiritual energy quality and no longer has the power of any dimensional infection and erosion. Otherwise, Chen Ming would have to worry about the dimension infection mark. As for the mechanical psionic biological transformation facilities of the machine tribe and the technology of converting psionic creatures into psionic cores, it seems a little bit dangerous. Danger in two senses. One danger is that this shows that the machine race near the Empire is still connected with the more distant machine race. The war between the Empire and the machine race is likely to involve more than just one star field. Another danger is the danger the Empire poses to the psychers within the Empire. Humans are also living creatures. If this kind of transformation facility has no effect on humans, Chen Ming would not believe it. It's just that the existence of humans or human-like beings is quite special, so the Shining Civilization, a civilization that is absolutely inseparable from humans, deliberately researches equipment such as the Spirit Enlightening Nerve Extraction device for human psychers. Chen Ming often didn't want to think too much about this kind of thing, but now it was really hard for him not to think too much. This kind of psionic core can extract psionic cores from psychers, and while obtaining psionic cores, batch-produce various degraded psychers, and can even recycle the mechanical spiritual awakening nerves of long-standing psychers. The emergence of this technology is extremely threatening to the existence of psychics, even more dangerous than the chilling nerve extraction device. It must be sealed, and Chen Ming must not let it fall into the hands of the Empire. So at this time, Chen Ming still has a question in his mind. After the machine race transformed the dimensional infection entity, where did the most important destruction core go? Chen Ming asked the Empress. The mechanical queen directly gave Chen Ming a blueprint. A blueprint for the main weapon of the machine tribe, the spine cannon head. Jitsui, give me everything. Chen Ming sighed. The machine queen did not respond. Because it's just machinery and all it does is obey orders. It seems that in the future, as long as it is related to the mechanical clan, if you don't understand something, you can try to figure it out from the mechanical queen. Not all questions may be answered, but most certainly can. Chen Ming thought this and looked at the blueprint carefully. If the mechanical queen can give him the blueprint, it means that the mechanical tribe uses the destruction core for the weapon of the blueprint, which is also a very understandable way of using it. However, Chen Ming's eyes suddenly frowned. Because the blueprint of the spine cannon head that he saw at this time was not the new weapon owned by the mechanical tribe that Higu had told him some time ago. It is a truly brand new weapon that is not yet known to the Empire. Ridge Cannon, Destroyer. This is a little scary. Under the premise that the machine tribe has a new type of psychic weapon, the machine tribe actually hides a more threatening weapon. Although the destruction of spiritual nerves by scraps is nothing to Chen Ming, to ordinary people these things are already destructive enough. And the destruction of the main weapon level of the battleship, that would be really fatal. And I'm afraid it's not just destruction. The destruction core is installed as a destroyer. What about the other cores installed? What kind of effect will it have? Etc. Chen Ming suddenly realized that he seemed to have thought of something terrible if other psychic cores could also be installed on weapons with similar designs. That is to say, the new machine-type weapons investigated by the Empire may be just one of this batch of weapons. It's just that the machine tribe deliberately released information about a new weapon, making the Empire think they only had this new weapon. Others continued to be hidden, only to be brought out at the necessary moment to inflict heavy damage on the Empire. Chen Ming quickly sent a copy of the document to Legion's prosthesis. He must inform people of this news. News of this type of destructive psychic weapon must be known to others. After Chen Ming urgently sent the document to Bai Quan, he immediately received a call from Bai Quan. What did you just send? Chen Ming responded, I can't say much else. I can only tell you that these are real information. The machine tribe definitely has more than one new weapon. Don't ask me anything, I don't want to say anything. I understand, thank you. Bai Quan did not continue to ask, just thanked him and hung up the phone. It was no surprise to him that Chen Ming would come up with some unexpected surprises from time to time. Just hold it. Can Chen Ming still trick him? Chen Ming looked at the call that was hung up decisively and estimated that Bai Quan would be busy for a few days. Then he simply turned off the terminal. After all, what he gave was real, and the weapon designs of the mechanical race were also real. The design was so detailed that it could be directly reproduced one-to-one. Whether it was the Psychic Research Institute or the Ship Research Institute, there would definitely be more than one person who wanted to contact him. Chen Ming didn't want his phone to be blown up. After turning off the terminal, Chen Ming continued to think about the Queen of Machinery and asked a question. That is, the plan to repair the transformation facility. The Queen of Machinery did not give the file this time, but gave an answer after asking for the current three-dimensional scanning image of the transformation facility. It cannot be repaired, because the source of the transformation facilities owned by the mechanical race star field close to the Empire is other mechanical races in more distant places. In the mechanical race, there can only use the remains of the shining civilization as a replacement, and it is also impossible to repair. However, the Queen of Machinery gave an alternative plan, asking Chen Ming to go to the nearest mechanical race star system for replacement, where there is another transformation facility. The Queen of Machinery gave Chen Ming an exact coordinate. Chen Ming stared at the coordinates in silence for a while, asked the Machine Queen a question. A few seconds later, he got the detailed star map of the mechanical race and mastered the precise deployment of the mechanical race's fleet. Looking at this star map and deployment map, Chen Ming suddenly sighed again. What a pity. The mechanical race will definitely change the overall deployment of the mechanical race star field that the mechanical queen knows as soon as they lose the Machine Queen. If Chen Ming can seize the Machine Queen when the real war breaks out, the war may end most of the time in advance. But now, it's really a pity. But Chen Ming couldn't predict this in advance. At least after having this star map, he knew the coordinates of some important star systems of the mechanical race, and these star systems could not be relocated. He could try to attack and rob the conversion facilities. But there is no rush for the time being. He still has a lot of things to do now, and he has no time to use it to raid the mechanical race. Chen Ming thought so, and suddenly started the terminal again. While no one called him yet, he hurriedly sent the star map and the mechanical race's deployment map to Bai Quan. Bai Quan immediately called again. This time he didn't speak, but Chen Ming heard what he meant from his silence. A simple, powerful question mark. Don't ask. Just ask that I have someone in the mechanical tribe. By the way, the deployment map expired about an hour ago. Now the mechanical tribe should have changed its deployment. If there is any emergency action, you can try it in this last bit of time. Bai Quan really wanted to ask Chen Ming how he got this extremely critical thing, but he still restrained himself and said, if there is no problem, you can consider what level of merit you want. I will try to get you 2 special merits. Bai Quan hung up the communication. After Chen Ming seriously considered what to exchange for the special merit, he put his consciousness back to the main body. Chen Ming also figured out all the information about the things he obtained. Next, there should be 4 things he needs to do on the main body. Prepare for an attack on the mechanical tribe and seize the transformation facilities. Go to the ruins of the shining civilization discovered by the mechanical race and take a look at the information that the mechanical race originally planned to explore. Use the 0 sample obtained by the conversion facility for further research. By the way, see if the mechanical awakening nerve can come up with something interesting. The first 2 of these 4 things can be done without rushing. Whether it is breaking into the mechanical race star field or going to the information that the mechanical race is afraid to go directly, it takes time to prepare. The last 2 things can be started now and kept going. After figuring out the principle of the mechanical awakening nerve, Chen Ming is also quite curious about this thing. He has been thinking, can the mechanical awakening nerve be implanted into a prosthesis? Unwhooping is not very active, so he can only make a new prosthesis. Chen Ming is actually considering whether to find a way to transform the Black Fog Psychic into his prosthesis. This guy has not woken up since Chen Ming saved his life last time. The reason is very simple. When his awakening nerve was still there, his consciousness was strong and his body could support such consciousness. Now his spiritual awakening nerve is gone, and although the strength of consciousness is gradually decreasing, it is not something that a body without spiritual awakening nerves can support. Before the strength of consciousness decreases, he will only fall into a coma, and the time will last about 3 months. To be honest, it is no different from being dead. As long as the spiritual awakening nerves are extracted, even if the psychic is saved, he will be an ordinary person at most. So Chen Ming wants the Black Fog Psychic to play his last remaining heat. This is also a plan he has carefully considered. Although the Black Fog Psychic is a member of the left channel and is dead, he can indeed become a prosthesis. Because Chen Ming knows that the left channel has not been completely destroyed, they have only lost a part of the power that is exposed. Even if the Black Fog Psychic is discovered, his existence can be used to remind those people in the Empire who are committed to eliminating the left channel that the left channel is still there. It's just that Chen Ming has to pay attention. If An Wuping's relationship with him is discovered, at most someone will scold him. But if the relationship between the Black Mist Psychic and him is discovered, Chen Ming will be involved in a lot of headaches. Of course, it's just a trouble, which can be solved. In addition, Chen Ming has another idea, which is to transform the Black Mist spiritual nerve into the Black Mist core. Then use the converted scraps to make a Black Mist mechanical spiritual nerve and implant it into the Black Mist Psychic. This should be very interesting. Then he can apply some of the mechanical and Zerg research results from Sample 0 to him, so that this Black Mist prosthesis becomes a prosthesis that integrates multiple abilities different from An Wuping, who combines the power of the Zerg and the source of chaos. At that time, this prosthesis can also become a special prosthesis for Chen Ming to move in the mechanical starfield. The more Chen Ming thought about it, the more interesting it was, and he immediately prepared. At this time, his shuttle at the headquarters finally arrived at the Ship Research Institute. In Chen Ming's original plan, the Ship Research Institute should be a place he would go to in the middle of the war with the mechanical race. However, plans cannot keep up with changes. The phase monster Chen Ming encountered now, and the phase ship promised by Chiu Bowen forced Chen Ming to come here early. Because Chiu Bowen told the Ship Research Institute about Chen Ming in advance, and Chen Ming also took the time to contact them. So the location Chen Ming went to this time was arranged by the Ship Research Institute, a space station located in the orbit of the planet. The shuttle entered the inner port of the space station through the VIP channel. When Chen Ming got off the ship, the director of the Ship Research Institute had come here in person to greet him. Mr. Chen Ming, welcome, welcome. The director of the Ship Research Institute in front of him had a kind face. Although his hair was completely white, he looked energetic and did not look like an old man in Chen Ming's impression at all. Chen Ming stretched out his hand to the director and said, "Just call me Chen Ming." The director immediately shook Chen Ming's hand a few times, but did not let go. Instead, he took Chen Ming and introduced the 2 deputies following him. Both of them were ordinary people, they looked old, and they were also top researchers involved in the phase ship research. Chen Ming always respected capable people and took the initiative to greet them. The 2 deputies responded immediately. In addition, there were some ordinary researchers and some accompanying security personnel, and there were not too many messy people. This simple and not noisy, but extremely important attitude made Chen Ming feel quite comfortable. After Chen Ming greeted several important people brought by the director. The director cleared his throat slightly and said, "Chen Ming, General Chiu has told us about the matter. We are all willing to cooperate with your work. At present, the Institute has manufactured a total of 7 phase ship prototypes, 4 escorts, 3 destroyers, and a cruiser level is still being manufactured. I'll take you there now." "Sorry. It should be." The director obviously didn't want to waste time. Soon Chen Ming, under his leadership, changed to a medium-sized shuttle belonging to the Ship Research Institute and left the space station, headed to the orbital test site. In addition to the highly industrialized planet itself, the Ship Research Institute's planet also has 2 artificial orbital industrial rings in space. The inner ring is pure industrial facilities, and the inner side of the outer ring is the same. The outer side of the outer ring is the place where most ship experiments are conducted. The orbital test site is here. And on the outer side is the space station where Chen Ming just stayed. Compared with the pirate space station with a city built inside, it is even larger. It is equivalent to the headquarters of the Ship Research Institute. In addition, on the orbit of this planet belonging to the Ship Research Institute, there is a giant structure corresponding to the space station, a giant dock for producing main battleships and main weapons. It can only be said that all the supporting facilities are there. While Chen Ming was observing the layout of the Ship Research Institute through the porthole of the shuttle quickly landed on the outer side of the outer ring orbit. The imitation gravity device played a role here. Although the orbit was rotating, it would not throw people and buildings on it away. After landing, Chen Ming and the director and his party took the ground vehicle on the orbital industrial ring to a semi-open ship repair factory here. Although there was a starry sky above his head, Chen Ming did not need to wear protective clothing when he got off the car. Part of the oxygen on the orbital ring is maintained by the continuous production of life support devices, and the other part is bound by gravity, which is enough for people to work here without wearing protective clothing. In this somewhat empty maintenance plant, there are 7 ships parked scattered around. All are undergoing maintenance. These are phase ships. They look similar to ordinary ships, without too obvious differences, and all have the appearance of normal spaceships. The main color scheme is close to dark blue and silver gray, which should be caused by the materials needed to build phase ships. Only the center of the spacecraft is slightly protruding, making the spacecraft, which originally looked like a trapezoid with a large bottom angle from the top, look like a hexagon. It seems that a large number of equipment is installed in it. These equipment installed in the middle of the ship are the biggest difference between these phase ships and ordinary ships. In general, these spaceships are basically a bit rough, and various equipment and lines have not been well optimized and designed. However, the phase ship is still in the experimental stage after all, and it is fine as long as it can move. Optimization such as hidden lines and equipment will only be needed in the future. The director gestured to the 7 phase ships and said, "All the phase ships that have been manufactured are here. If you don't mind the trouble, you can control them all." Chen Ming suddenly suspected that he had heard wrongly and asked, "All?" Yes, the phase ship itself is very easy to lose, especially in the early stages of the experiment. We don't know much about the phase space. Basically, 2 or 3 experiments will cause a spacecraft to be damaged. If you are here, the loss of our ship may be less. Okay. Since the director said so, Chen Ming was not polite. Anyway, other people don't have to think about taking back the things in his hands. Chen Ming immediately walked around the 7 ships and controlled each phase ship. By observing the panels, Chen Ming found that the biggest difference between phase ships and ordinary ships was indeed the things installed in the middle area that looked bloated in appearance. Phase devices such as phase coil, phase force field modulator, phase stabilization anchor, and phase traction device. The most critical one is probably the phase coil. This thing not only occupies the largest space inside the spacecraft, but also uses a special material. There are several small coils made of different materials around the complex phase coil. It seems that they want to test what materials can be used as substitutes for this special material. It's a pity that Chen Ming can only see these relatively superficial things through the panel. But once the technology and manufacturing conditions for these things are figured out for him, he will be able to build his own phase ship. It's still too early to say this. After Chen Ming finished controlling the spacecraft, he returned to the director. Just at this time, someone came to the maintenance plant, sent a document to the director, and said, "Director, the experiment can begin." The director immediately blinked at Chen Ming several times. This. Now Chen Ming knew why the director gave him control so quickly. However, he doesn't think there is any problem with this. After all, the value of the phase ship is not low, especially the prototype in the experimental stage. Qiu Bowen had only promised to give Chen Ming a phase ship before, but the director chose to directly hand over all the phase ships they owned to him for control. The meaning was very simple. That is to say, all control of these ships was given to him, and then he was asked to help ensure the progress of some more dangerous experiments. After all, if the prototype is lost, it has to be built, but if it is given to Chen Ming, if it is damaged, Chen Ming can just repair it. They will definitely provide the materials. In this way, the Institute can ensure that the ships tested in the future will not be completely lost. And Chen Ming earned control of all the phase ships in the Institute. When there are more phase ships in the Ship Research Institute later, these ships will all be Chen Ming. There may even be more than the 7 ships now, and there may be more in the future. Chen Ming didn't think there was anything wrong with the director's approach to a win-win situation. It would be better to say that the more situations like this, the better. And this can actually be regarded as a test for him by the director. After all, Chen Ming can be regarded as an airborne figure arranged by the Legion commander. Unlike Gu of the Psychic Research Institute, who has too many interactions with the Ship Research Institute, he is a person with very high authority. If we don't know Chen Ming's details, there will be many things that the Naval Research Institute cannot do freely. If Chen Ming is willing to get along well, then many things can be discussed. But if Chen Ming is a greedy person, he will swallow the elephant. Then the director of the Ship Research Institute should consider a new way to deal with Chen Ming. Chen Ming has always been a very kind person. He treats others as others treat him. The director took the initiative to show his kindness, and Chen Ming was of course willing to reciprocate. He responded, "If the ship is controlled by me, there will most likely be no problems. However, I have never been in contact with phase space, so I cannot give a 100% guarantee." These words were enough. The director nodded at Chen Ming and took Chen Ming on the shuttle boat again to the experimental site. In the repair shop, there was a destroyer and an escort. A total of 2 phase ships also took off after the final inspection and followed the shuttle boat. 10 minutes later, the shuttle and 2 phase ships arrived at the testing site. However, it is said to be a test site. In fact, many experiments on spacecraft are conducted directly in space, and this time is no exception. It's just that the Institute has arranged multiple automatic observation points near the determined experimental site and a relatively distant main observation point, completely surrounding the center of the experimental site. These observation points are similar to miniature space stations. Whether they are automatic observation points or main observation points, they can accommodate enough equipment and manpower. No data or images will be missed. However, because the automatic observation point is close to the center of the test site, usually only the equipment is left at the automatic observation point to establish a remote signal connection with the main observation point. Therefore, the shuttle boat finally landed on the satellite space station as the main observation point. The director immediately arranged the experiment process after disembarking. It can be seen that the director has rich management experience. At least hundreds of people participated in the entire experimental process and were responsible for different tasks. All these people are doing what they should do in an orderly manner under the command of the director. Chen Ming watched and learned silently. After all, he is also the director of the Super Research Institute. Those researchers who usually manage purely by relying on their own prestige and ability have no problem when the time is short and the number of people is small. But if his laboratory expands in the future, or if he has to carry out some projects that require the entire institute to work together, his current management capabilities will not be able to keep up, and it will never go wrong to learn some project management experience. The director seemed to notice that Chen Ming listened very carefully and even showed Chen Ming some details of the workflow arrangement. He really regarded Chen Ming as a member of this experiment. However, Chen Ming knew nothing about phase ships, so he just took a look and repaired the spacecraft when it had problems, but he was also very interested in learning about phase technology. So after the director had almost arranged everything, he asked, "What is the purpose of this phase ship experiment?" Use the special resonant frequency of the phase space to try to enable friendly units to observe the phase ships in the phase space from the normal universe environment. Chen Ming understood, but didn't understand. The director saw Chen Ming's situation, and while continuing to manage the overall control of this experiment, he began to explain the basic knowledge points of phase ships to Chen Ming. After explaining some basic concepts of phase ships, he talked about the current experiment. In short, the purpose of this experiment is to verify a special device that the Ship Research Institute has just developed. It allows fleets in the normal universe to observe friendly forces in the phase space, preventing the phase ship from appearing in the friendly force's firing range when it returns to reality. And this device will only have an effect on friendly forces and will not be discovered by the enemy. It was similar to the situation where Chen Ming saw the mechanical race using phase weapons but could see lasers in the normal universe, but it was different. Since this method required repeated entry into the phase space in a short period of time to simulate actual combat, it was a little dangerous for the current phase ship, and Chen Ming needed to provide some protection. Chen Ming had a question about this. During actual combat, wouldn't the phase ship always stay in the phase space? The phase ship cannot dissipate radiation energy in the phase space. The director explained some basic concepts of the phase space. Although the phase space corresponds to the normal universe environment, in the phase space, all places where there is no matter are filled with a special medium. This medium has no effect on the human body and can be directly regarded as non-existent, but for the spacecraft, it will hinder the spacecraft from dissipating radiation energy. Entering the phase space itself will also lead to the accumulation of radiation energy, not to mention the use of weapons in the phase space. So in war, it is impossible for the phase ship to stay in the phase space all the time. Repeatedly entering and exiting the phase space to engage the enemy and avoid the enemy's attack is the most likely situation. Radiation energy. Chen Ming almost forgot about radiation energy. Every ship will generate radiation energy in the radiation energy system of the spacecraft, no matter what it does when it starts. Whether it is using weapons or letting the shield take damage, it will lead to the growth of radiation energy, and there is a difference between soft and hard radiation energy. Once the radiation energy exceeds the upper limit, there will be a radiation overload phenomenon that paralyzes the entire ship. However, the existence of Chen Ming's psychic energy means that no matter what happens, the radiation energy value of his spacecraft will never go up, and it will be wiped out with the repair psychic energy, unless something can directly fill up the radiation energy of Chen Ming's spacecraft, so that Chen Ming has no time to repair it. But that is either a crushing in the number of fleets, such as the last time the mechanical clan sneak attacked his Colossus class, or it is a crushing in the level of ships, such as the Afterglow cruiser controlled by Chen Ming was destroyed by a single shot from the main battleship of the Legion. But the concentrated fire of more than 20 mechanical clan cruisers last time just almost blew up the shield. For Chen Ming, as long as the radiation energy system is not penetrated by a wave, it is in good condition. Even if it was penetrated, it would not be a big problem. As long as the enemy's most fierce firepower wave failed to completely destroy the ship, then under the effect of his psychic power, even if the ship only had a handbrake left, Chen Ming could drive the ship back intact. And it was also a low probability event that his ship met the main battleship at the beginning. So all these factors combined led to Chen Ming not caring about the radiation system all the time. At most, he paid attention to the upper limit of radiation energy. After all, this upper limit determined the upper limit of the attack that his ship could withstand in a short period of time. In this way, the strength of the radiation system is a good indicator for judging the performance of the phase ship. The phase ship needs to have enough upper limit for fighting in the phase space, and it needs to have enough radiation energy dissipation to allow the phase ship to leave the phase space and quickly discharge radiation when too much radiation energy is accumulated. That's interesting. If the phase ship controlled by Chen Ming is constantly repaired by him in the phase space, it seems that some effects that make the enemy disgusted can be achieved, and he can try it now. But he didn't rush to mention this matter. Let's take a look at this experiment first. But before the experiment officially started, Chen Ming suddenly thought of something else. He asked the director, "Can I arrange 2 of my robots to go on board?" The director immediately thought about it. He knew that Chen Ming was a psychic and that Chen Ming could control all machinery. In his opinion, Chen Ming's robot was like an avatar of his. Such an existence entering the phase space would definitely bring back some additional intelligence data. The director responded, "Of course you can if you are not worried about the robot breaking down, but you need to wait a little. We need to know the data of your robot and make some corrections to the phase ship based on this data." Chen Ming released the metal liquid and created 2 robots based on the locust armor around him. "Sorry for the trouble." The director nodded, called several researchers, and began to obtain various data of the robots. Then, the 2 spacecrafts to be tested were corrected for some experimental data changes caused by the load of the spacecraft. About half an hour later, the director brought Chen Ming the news that everything was ready. Chen Ming's two robots had been sent to the two phase ships. The escort-level phase ship looked ordinary, just an ordinary experimental ship. But the destroyer-level phase ship was a little more interesting. Chen Ming could clearly see that this experimental ship was designed in the direction of a transport ship. Indeed, the phase ship has great advantages in transportation, maneuverability, and self-protection that all other ships do not have. After entering the phase space, only enemies in the same phase space can harm it. And transport ships are indeed easier to develop than combat ships. In the early stage of the experiment, it is indeed a more reasonable choice to focus on this type of research. Because the spaceship had not been cleaned up, after Chen Ming's robot entered the spaceship, he could see that the phase coils with special structures that occupied a considerable space inside the spaceship were exposed in patches, as if there was a possibility of leakage at any time. However, the problem was not big. The director and his team were the main people studying the phase ship. If they did not think there was a problem, Chen Ming did not have to think so. And now the most important thing is that the two phase ships have started to operate. The exposed phase coils showed a purple halo that appeared at the junction of the phase space and the normal universe environment, which was somewhat similar to the color of hyperspace, but more transparent. Soon, the two phase ships pulled the ship into the phase space under the synergy of different devices. In an instant, Chen Ming got two pieces of news. One good news and one bad news. The good news is that Chen Ming's psychic power will not be blocked even if it enters the phase space, and he can still perfectly control the robot. The bad news. It was the moment when Chen Ming just saw the phase space outside the spaceship, which was almost completely indistinguishable from the normal universe. He felt a heavy pressure from the robot in the phase space, as if he was at the bottom of the sea. Even though it was just a robot, this pressure was transmitted from the robot to Chen Ming, pressing hard on his brain. However, after getting used to the pressure from the spirit stone, this little pressure was nothing to Chen Ming. His face did not change, and he was even carefully sensing what caused the entire phase space to exert heavy pressure on him. Finally, Chen Ming was somewhat surprised to find that in his consciousness space, the crack connected to the scarlet dimension was closed for some reason. I don't believe that there is a crack that leaks the power of the dimension like before. Chen Ming immediately temporarily cut off his control over the two robots in the phase space. At the moment when the control was cut off, the pressure Chen Ming felt disappeared, and the crack in the scarlet dimension opened again, slowly giving Chen Ming the power of psychic energy. Chen Ming reconnected his robot, and the crack in the scarlet dimension closed again, and he felt the pressure again. That's right, it was the phase space that suppressed the scarlet dimension. This was something Chen Ming had never expected. Phase space and scarlet dimension are actually related, and they are actually in conflict. In fact, phase space suppresses the power of scarlet dimension. Of course, this may also be because Chen Ming's consciousness space is just a crack, so it is suppressed. However, it is certain that phase space and scarlet dimension are in conflict. But why is this? Why do phase space and scarlet dimension, two dimensions that have nothing to do with each other, conflict? Chen Ming only knows the most basic concepts of scarlet dimension, and his understanding of phase space is only what the director just told him. He has no way to answer this question. But scarlet dimension and phase space are both important to him. Scarlet dimension is a source of powerful psychic power, and it is also a library for his psychic effect to be further improved. Phase space is likely to become the main development direction of ships in the future. The foundation of Chen Ming's ability is ships, and it is impossible to abandon the existence of phase space. These two actually conflict with each other. This is a bit wrong. Chen Ming has to find a way to figure out the reason behind it. But these two are troublesome existences. Neither of them can be understood by Chen Ming in a short time. He could only slightly change his plan and increase the time he spent in the Ship Research Institute, and then find a suitable time to try to enter the Scarlet Dimension for the second time. The Scarlet Dimension is a dimension full of knowledge. As long as you can enter and come out alive, the knowledge related to psychic power in the Scarlet Dimension will naturally fill your consciousness. As long as you can go in a few more times, Chen Ming will sooner or later figure out the reason for the conflict between Scarlet and Phase. Speaking of which, Chen Ming suddenly seemed to understand what the phase beast was like. As a creature of the phase space, the reason why the phase beast looked for him was probably related to his contact with the scarlet dimension. Then he thought of the emotions contained in the phase beast's voice before: alertness, desire, curiosity, anger, fear. These emotions are probably not all directed at him, but at his connection with the scarlet dimension. What exactly does the phase beast want to do? Fortunately, Chen Ming did not hear the voice of the phase beast now. Otherwise, he suspected that the phase beast would come to the Phase Research Institute soon. He continued to look at the director next to him without changing his expression. The director suddenly handed over a pair of lavender glasses and motioned Chen Ming to put them on. Chen Ming took the glasses and asked, "Have you conducted manned experiments before?" "Yes, first animals, then humans." "Are there any accidents?" "No, everything is normal. There is no discomfort after entering. It is no different from being in a normal universe. There is no problem with the subsequent physical examination." "Is that so?" "Then the pressure is indeed specifically aimed at the scarlet dimension on him, not equally for everyone." "Interesting." Chen Ming didn't say much, put on his glasses, and asked, "What's the use of these glasses?" "Glasses made of phase resonance lenses can observe the special light signals emitted by the phase ship in the phase space through a specific resonance frequency. Look at the position of the phase ship just now." Chen Ming turned his head and looked. At the position where the two phase ships disappeared, there were two dark purple light patterns like shadows in the void, marking the position of the phase ship. Chen Ming raised his glasses and looked with his naked eyes. The light pattern disappeared immediately. He put down his glasses again, and the light pattern appeared in his eyes. The director next to him reminded, "This pair of glasses and the phase ship can adjust different resonance frequency bands. Only when they correspond can they observe each other, which is used to deal with the moment when the enemy sees through our frequency band. The phase ship itself can also turn off the display of this mark at any time and completely hide itself." Chen Ming looked at the several tiny buttons on the edge of the glasses and pressed them casually, changing the frequency that the glasses could observe. The marking light pattern of the phase ship in the distance disappeared again. Chen Ming took off his glasses and carefully observed its structure. However, like the phase ship, he couldn't understand it. Soon, the phase ship temporarily left the phase space and began to prepare for the subsequent repeated experiments. Chen Ming withdrew his gaze from the phase ship, looked at the director and asked, "Is the phase ship the only way to enter the phase space now?" "If you are talking about ships and people, it is indeed only possible through the phase ship. But others are not necessarily." "What else? Like phase weapons?" The director responded to Chen Ming's question. "Needless to say, phase weapons, the normal universe's method of attacking phase space, is equivalent to sending things from the normal universe into phase space. On the contrary, a ship in phase space does not necessarily need to use phase weapons, which is very interesting." Chen Ming took advantage of the situation and asked, "How is the research progress of phase weapons?" "Being ahead of the phase ship." Because when phase technology was first developed, we suspected that the mechanical tribe had a phase ship. Although this news was just confirmed, the first thing we started was the research on phase weapons. Sending ammunition or lasers fired by weapons into phase space is indeed a way to enter phase space, but it is a pity that this is specific to weapons. Chen Ming didn't want to send the phase weapon into the phase space to find trouble with the phase beast now, especially after seeing the scene where the mechanical tribe's phase weapon hair didn't work and was slapped to death by the phase beast. "Anything else?" "Yes, a phase space communication device." The director was familiar with all phase-related technologies and immediately explained to Chen Ming what he had just mentioned. Phase space is different from hyperspace. Hyperspace can maintain a stable connection with the normal cosmic environment. But in phase space, ordinary communication systems are subject to very frequent and severe interference. In order to maintain a stable connection between the normal universe and phase space, we have previously developed two methods to maintain normal communication. One is to use the phase position to construct a special environment that connects the normal universe and phase space, so that the internal devices have the characteristics of existing in the normal universe environment and phase space at the same time. Building a communication anchor point on this basis can ensure communication between the two spaces, which is similar to the effect of a superlight communication base station. The other is a device that can transmit sound to the phase universe. The latter is of little significance, and there has been little progress since the research was completed, so we mainly study the former. The director said so. But when Chen Ming heard about the device that transferred the industry to the phase universe, he couldn't hold it anymore. This is exactly what he needs now. Can I see the sound transmission device? The device isn't here, but I can have it brought to you. Do you need it now? It would be best if it could be done quickly. Good. The director agreed and immediately contacted someone for Chen Ming to deliver the device. After explaining the matter clearly to others, he said to Chen Ming, "Actually, as long as people do not enter the phase space, there are several other methods. For example, we also have the technology to send items directly into phase space, but after sending them in, we must use a phase ship to bring them out. Actually, Yuhui has used similar techniques before. If I remember correctly, it has something to do with you." Chen Ming nodded and said, "Indeed, but I also remember that the mechanical tribe didn't seem to have a very good grasp of this technology at the time. Yeah, thanks to them losing a lot. Otherwise, the Empire might have to face an enemy that cannot be observed. So do you need to see this technology? This is not needed for the time being." Chen Ming rejected the director's kindness. He only needed the sound-producing device now, because he has left something in the phase space after the phase ship he controlled entered the phase space. These things can serve as anchor points, allowing his psychic energy to bring more things directly into the phase space. If Chen Ming wants to contact the phase beast, he can just build a cruiser and make a jump. Wait, Chen Ming suddenly realized another problem. If a ship in phase space makes a jump, how will it be different from that in a normal cosmic environment? Chen Ming quickly asked the director, "Wait a minute, the technology one just mentioned can give you anything, right?" "Yes. Did you ever send a cruiser?" "That's not true, because the material consumed to send something into phase space is directly proportional to the mass of the thing sent in. In addition, if you want to get it back, you have to rely on a phase ship, so we haven't tried sending a cruiser in. We have only tried sending an ordinary ship in." Chen Ming was a little surprised that the Institute would actually try this and asked, "What happened to those ships in the end?" "As long as the spacecraft is running, it will slowly generate radiation energy, so it will either shut down permanently or it will be destroyed due to radiation overload during operation. Later, we used the phase ship to send in some tools to cut up those ships, and at least we brought back the wreckage." When you asked this question, you were probably thinking about the phase space transition, right? Chen Ming did not deny it. The director continued to say to Chen Ming, "We have also considered this issue. In our opinion, everything in the phase space corresponds to the normal cosmic environment, so of course the spatial coordinates are also the same. And the jump engine has no way to penetrate the barrier between the normal universe and phase space. So wherever you jump, you can only jump to that coordinate in the end. This is our current inference. The actual situation will depend on future research and experiments." Chen Ming understood. Fortunately, he actually didn't have the idea of driving the ship to contact it directly. He now wanted to use the device mentioned by the director to transmit sound directly from the normal universe to the phase space. After all, next, he mainly wanted to communicate with the phase monster. And communication requires sound. Although the problem of sound transmission may need to be solved at that time, after all, the medium of the phase space will not only affect the radiation energy system of the spacecraft, but the current research has not found any additional special effects. Therefore, these media cannot transmit sound. If you want to communicate with the phase monster, whether it is a spaceship robot or something else sent by Chen Ming, it will definitely be in danger. So Chen Ming's idea is to rely only on the sound transmission equipment given by the director to do things. In this way, even if something goes wrong, his losses will be less. Seeing that Chen Ming looked thoughtful, the director did not say more. However, while waiting, he suddenly noticed that Chen Ming's eyes were no longer thinking as he had just done, but were on the phase ship that was conducting experiments in the distance. Obviously, Chen Ming had thought clearly about what he was thinking about just now. So he took this opportunity to ask Chen Ming, Does your robot have any special feelings when entering the phase space? Chen Ming withdrew his gaze from the phase ship, turned to the director and said, Yes, yes, I also think it is necessary to talk about it. Even if the director does not ask about this matter now, Chen Ming will take the initiative to talk about it after the experiment. Because there are many things to say about the conflict between the phase space and the scarlet dimension. But I want to ask first, is there a connection between the phase space and the dimension that caused the dimensional infection? The director was stunned when he heard Chen Ming's question. Why did you say dimensional infection? Because I think they are a bit similar. The director carefully considered Chen Ming's words, but in his opinion, the phase space and the dimension that caused the dimensional infection are actually not deeply related. On the contrary, hyperspace and phase space are more similar. So he could only say, it's not clear about this. We don't have any data in this area yet, and we haven't conducted any research. Our Legion is mainly developing phase ships, and the derived phase technology development is being done by other research institutes that cooperate with us. Chen Ming's expression became more serious, and he said, Is that so? Then I think I have to find a few people to come together to listen to what I'm going to say next. The director also felt a hint of seriousness from Chen Ming's words. He knew very well that if Chen Ming asked him to find someone, he would definitely not be looking for an ordinary person. It's probably that Chen Ming's robot just noticed something that was definitely related to dimensional infection when it entered the phase space with the phase ship. Otherwise, Chen Ming would not have asked him the question about dimensional infection just now. If the phase space is related to dimensional infection, then what Chen Ming is going to say next will definitely be very important. The director thought about this clearly and took the initiative to suggest to Chen Ming, Do you need me to help contact some people? Chen Ming didn't expect the director to take the initiative to mention this. He originally thought that he needed to say a little more to make the director believe him. Unexpectedly, the director seemed to have figured it out in advance. However, Chen Ming did not rush to ask the director to find someone, but pointed to the experiment being carried out next to him and asked, Is this one okay? It's okay, just leave it to my 2 deputies. Okay, then try to find people who are related to dimensional infection and phase space technology. There doesn't need to be too many, just people who can make decisions on some things. Although Chen Ming did not think this matter was urgent, after all, there was no point in being anxious. Before he discovered the connection between phase space and scarlet dimension, phase space and dimensional infection were 2 completely unrelated things in the eyes of everyone in the Empire. If you want to conduct subsequent research and analysis based on Chen Ming's discovery, it is not a matter of moving quickly to speed up the overall progress. So Chen Ming originally wanted to wait until the experiment was over and the work was done before talking to the director about this matter. But since the director took the initiative to bring it up and helped find someone, Chen Ming didn't mind moving faster. After arranging the person in charge of the subsequent experiments, the director took Chen Ming back to the space station of the Ship Research Institute and arranged a meeting room. On the way, Chen Ming found the president, and the president quickly agreed to attend the meeting. Then he contacted the director of the Psychic Research Institute through He Gu, who also agreed without any objection. Although He Gu said that the Psychic Research Institute was unhappy with Chen Ming because he went to the Ship Research Institute to hold a meeting with their people, it was not a big problem. Then Chen Ming also called Bai Quan and Xiao Bowen. Although Bai Quan and Xiao Bowen seemed to be very busy because of the news about the mechanical family he provided, Chen Ming had new news to tell them, so they had to come. In short, Chen Ming felt that he had found all the people he could find, and the rest depended on whether the people he found valued the situation that Chen Ming had briefly described when he contacted them. The director said that he had found all the other people who had cooperated with the phase ship research. However, since the president was the main person in charge of dimensional infection, and the president had contacted Chen Ming, the director did not contact many people in this regard. It didn't have much impact. However, after knowing what Chen Ming was going to talk about, Xiao Bowen contacted the Star Domain chief of Kamo Star Domain, the one who had faked his death before. Although Xiao Bowen had targeted Chen Ming before, he was still quite reliable when dealing with some unrelated official business. Even the Star Domain chief of Kamo, who was rebuilding Kamo, could let him take some time out. And Kamo Star Domain was the first place where the dimensional infection started, so there was no problem in contacting him. In this way, Chen Ming called several high-level officials of different forces and organizations in just half an hour, even the top and second in command, gathered together in the meeting room prepared by the director of the Ship Research Institute. Of course, it was in the form of holographic projection. There were about 20 people in total. Whether it was the Psychic Society, the Psychic Research Institute of the Legion, or the Legion itself, they all seemed to attach great importance to Chen Ming and brought some important people with them. However, only Chen Ming and the director of the Ship Research Institute were actually in the meeting room. The holographic projections of these 20 or so people were looking at each other. Through the reasons why they were called, they could roughly see the reasons why others were called. After Chen Ming confirmed that no one else would come, he cleared his throat and said, "I won't waste my words. There is only one reason why I called you all here. I found that the phase space is related to the dimension of dimensional infection. The phase space can suppress dimensional infection." Higu, who was called by Chen Ming, knew that Chen Ming called them here for this reason, but he still asked, "Are you serious?" This was to help Chen Ming talk so that Chen Ming could continue. Chen Ming nodded at him and said, "I can't be so bored that I call you, right? Just now, I cooperated with the director of the Ship Research Institute of the 14th Corps to conduct a phase ship experiment. The phase ship carrying the robot I controlled entered the phase space, and the phase space gave me feedback through the robot, suppressing the mark of dimensional infection on my body. When I am in contact with the phase space, the mark on my body will not take effect. This is enough to prove that the phase space has an impact on dimensional infection, and it is a positive impact on us." After listening to Chen Ming's story, the president cast a puzzled look at him. Chen Ming also reacted suddenly. The president's psychic power is related to spatial ability. At the beginning, the president was able to throw the entire galaxy infected by the dimension into an unknown space, and he must have the ability to step into the phase space. He must have been in, and he must have not felt the impact of the phase space on the dimensional infection mark at all. After all, the dimensional infection mark will not be affected. What is really affected is the scarlet dimensional rift in Chen Ming's consciousness space. The president must think Chen Ming is talking nonsense, so he looks at Chen Ming like this. Chen Ming immediately winked at the president, indicating that he would explain later. The president didn't say much and asked Chen Ming in cooperation, "What is the specific feeling?" "There will be a heavy pressure from the entire phase space in the consciousness, which will oppress the consciousness and the dimensional infection at the same time." Higu said again, "Are you sure that it is not because the phase space and the dimension that causes the dimensional infection are not closely connected that you have an illusion?" "No." Chen Ming immediately denied. "If the situation is as you said, then I shouldn't have such a feeling. Because it was my robot that entered the phase space, the phase space gave me pressure through the robot, so I came to such a conclusion. If it is because the phase space and that dimension are not closely connected, I shouldn't have any feeling at all. So I think phase technology is an extremely important technology and deserves more investment. Then what do you want to do by calling us? It's not to attract investment, right?" Chen Ming silently gave Higu a thumbs up in his heart. His questions helped Chen Ming quickly get into the topic of his meeting today. "I just think it's necessary to join forces. It's impossible for me to produce results on the relationship between phase space and dimensional infection. I just experienced that feeling myself. I can't systematically understand all those things and show them to everyone, especially since it not only involves dimensional infection, but also phase technology. So, I need to find all of you and connect you people who are unlikely to be connected. I don't think the president of the Psychic Society will have any intersection with the people in the Ship Research Institute, nor do I think, let alone the head of the Kamo Star region and the 14th Legion. But most of the people present have contact with me, and either it has something to do with dimensional infection," Chen Ming said, looking at the president and the head of the Star region, "or it has something to do with phase space technology." He looked at the Ship Research Institute and the few people the director had found. "Or it can play a key auxiliary role." Looking at the Psychic Research Institute, he glanced at Xiao Bowen and Bai Quan, who found that he was just a number and was called by Chen Ming and had nothing to do. "I'm sure you all know that what I just said will only benefit you and not harm you. And when you go back and do research, you will more or less consider what I said today and invest in research. But this kind of research involving multiple fields cannot be solved by one organization. You should all know the difficulty of researching alone. Not to mention that if I were not there, the entire empire would probably not have any research on the connection between phase technology and dimensional infection until the phase technology was developed. If you guys can't connect, the result is likely to make the impact of dimensional infection last for a long time. Chen Ming's words were very clear, and the people present still agreed with what Chen Ming said. The empire is so big that even people of the same level may not meet once in their lifetime. But the Starfield chief of Kamo Starfield suddenly asked, "How do you prove that what you said is correct?" This is the first time Chen Ming has come into contact with the head of Kamo Starfield. It can be seen that he is very concerned about this matter, and his attitude is really hoping to believe that this is true. But he must be responsible for the Starfield, and he must raise questions. The president chimed in. He is the second in command of our psychic society who is responsible for researching dimensional infection, and I am the first. The Star Domain Director was not affected by the president, and still said firmly, "Identity cannot be used to prove anything. People make mistakes." Chen Ming felt that the Star Domain Director was talking to him as well as himself. But Chen Ming would not make mistakes on things that have been verified. And he had already thought of a way for others to accept. We can conduct an interactive experiment between phase space and dimensional infection. Phase space can suppress the mark on me, and of course it can also suppress anything related to dimensional infection. What are the details? It's very simple. Find a pregnant woman in a high distortion rate area, bring her to the phase space and live there, and observe the fetus in her belly. A person from the director of the Ship Research Institute raised his hand and asked, "Doesn't the distortion of dimensional infection start when you get pregnant? Can the experiment be conducted if you are already distorted? If you are pregnant in phase space, there will be many deviations, and the experiment will be meaningless." Chen Ming responded, "The distortion period of dimensional infection is not as simple as being infected and distorted. Distortion will only occur when the embryo develops to the point where it produces brain nerves and its own weak consciousness." The same person asked, "But doesn't this mean that the dimensional infection did not affect the embryo earlier? Can the experiment still be conducted?" It's not what you think. In fact, at an earlier time point, the fetus has been affected. According to the records of our association's research, all fetuses in the dimension-infected area, no, all fertilized eggs, have been affected. Even if the pregnant woman is transferred outside the empire, as long as the fetus develops to the time when the brain nerves appear, it will still be deformed. So we need to find a fetus that has not yet developed brain nerves, and send it and the pregnant woman to the phase space for a period of time to see if there will be deformation after the brain nerves develop. The person brought by the Star Domain Chief opposed Chen Ming's idea. It's too slow, and pregnant women are not easy to find. Before, due to the large-scale appearance of deformed children, many areas have begun to implement government-funded free abortion laws to prevent the birth of deformed children or the death of pregnant women due to fetal deformities. Who would give birth to a newborn with a 100% probability of deformity? The probability is the same for 80% to 90%, unless it is close to the border of the empire, with a probability of 34% to 45%, then there may be people who will take a gamble. What the person brought by the Star Domain Chief said is indeed correct. It's scary to hear that a star field, or even dozens of star fields, must be forced to abort to prevent the birth of newborns. But some things must be done. If someone objects, Chen Ming's choice is to tear down the roof directly. There are quick ways to create dimensional infection artificially, and then send the source of dimensional infection into the phase space for testing. Who dares to come? Is there no less dangerous way? Chen Ming couldn't help but smile in his heart. Sure enough, he had to lift the roof to make people listen to him carefully. The source of the dimensional infection in Kamo Starfield is dead, and all derivatives and derivative individuals should die soon. As of today, there is a high probability that no one has survived. Dimensional infection is indeed very dangerous, but unless a new dimensional infection is created, in my opinion, we can only test it through pregnant women affected by dimensional infection. When everyone present was silent thinking about Chen Ming's proposal, the Starfield chief, who had been silent since asking the question just now, suddenly spoke again. No, there is still.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.